Well, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, and good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Morning Glow. Welcome to another episode of The Morning Glow. Good morning, Mac. Good morning, Juan. Good to have both of you all with us and everybody else that's going to join us today. We got a great broadcast lineup for you today, as I hope and I pray that we always do. The phone lines are open 508-924-3521, 508-924-3521. Election day is over. I hope you all took an opportunity to go out there and vote and let your voice be heard. I hope you all went out there and let your voice be heard and voice your opinion. I hope that the outcome was pretty much like you wanted it to be. Everybody cannot win, and certainly everybody cannot lose, but you have to be a participant. You definitely have to be a participant in the whole process, and in that process, you have to vote. You have to vote. So I want to applaud each and every one of you that took the time to go out there and vote. I certainly went out there and voted myself. I certainly went out there and voted myself. I had no choice because I could not get here before you on a daily and tell you how important it is to vote, tell you how important it is to vote, and me not take the time to go out there and vote myself. So I definitely went out and I voted. A lot of the outcomes that I voted for worked out in the way that I wanted it to. Some of them didn't. I I actually a couple of times I wrote my own name in the ballot. So if you look at that thing and they get the results and you see my name on some of the things with one or two votes, that was me voting for myself because I didn't see anybody in there that I wanted to vote for. And so they have a thing to go right in. So I wrote my own name in there. Raheem Ajume. I voted for me. It is. Third Coast. Good morning, Third Coast. How you doing? ID, good morning to you. ID Sean. ID Sean, good morning. Good to have you as well. I want to ask a question. I wanted to wait until a few people came in with me, but I'm gonna kick the question off right now because I'm very interested in this. And I want to know, where do communication end when you're talking to somebody? Where do communication end and an argument begin? You all having a conversation. Y'all are communicating on something, and naturally you don't agree. You don't agree, can't agree, won't agree. So at what point do the communication stop and the argument begin? What has to transpire for you to get? Man, I can't even talk this morning. What has to transpire for you to get to that place where the communication stops and the arguing begin? 508-924-3521, 508-924-3521. Give us a call. Let us know what you say about that. That's to me that's very interesting because it doesn't take long for a communication or conversation to transition over to an argument. And before you know it, I want to make sure I say this name right. Israel. I hope I said your name right. I hope I did not butcher it. Good morning to you. Good morning to Michael Simmons. Good morning to you as well. Great having you with us. Phone lines are open 508-924-3521. And as I said, oh man, I can't get. I hope I get this. Not Shreed. I hope I got that name right. LG. There's a lot of people that's joining, that's coming in here. Definitely appreciative of each and every one of you. Give us a call. We'd love to have your input on the conversation. We're talking this morning. I'm asking the question: where does communication stop and an argument begin? At what point when you're in a conversation, and certainly you're not agreeing, y'all are not in agreement in the conversation, but at what point does it turn into an argument? At what point do you think you might need to just turn and walk away from this thing because it's not going to get pretty. Because an argument has a tendency to turn over to something else and to turn over to something else and to turn over to something else. And before you know it, you could be in a physical altercation with someone, a very physical altercation. And weapons could come out. It don't take long for it to transition into something that you don't want it to be. It don't take long for it to actually transition into something that you certainly don't want it to be. So my question is, at what point do the conversation stop and the argument begin? 508-924-3521, 508-924-3521. I'm interested to hear what y'all got to say. I know what my ideas are on this, but I'm going to listen to a few of you all to tell me what you all think about it, what you think, how does it play itself out? Do you know when do most people know when to just walk away and say, you know what, this ain't no, you know what, this ain't what it needs to be, this ain't going in the direction it needs to go in? Or is a person more interested in sitting there trying to prove their point And in trying to prove their point, they find themselves in situations, in unwanted situations, arguing, fussing, fighting, losing friends, losing loved ones. And what do most people know? Do most people, and I say most people know when to walk away from a situation. Some people say when it started to get ugly or something like that, I'm not going to sit there and I'm not going to argue, blah blah blah. Well, that's what you say, but is that what you mean? Somebody got their hand up there. Good morning, waving to me. Good morning. I definitely appreciate it. Give me a call. Oh, that's my sister Friday. Let me send her the link. Let me send my sister that link because I definitely want to hear what my sister got to say this morning. Friday, if you got an opportunity, come on in and join us. If you got an opportunity, I just sent you the link. Come on in and join us. And tell us what do you think about this whole situation? When does a conversation stop? Who are that? Techie Tony. Techie Tony. Good morning to you, Techie. Techie Tony. That's my people over there. Techie Tony. I see you. Uh 508-924-3521, 508-924-3521. Asking a question this morning. People say it's a simple question, but yet it can be very complicated. It can be very complicated, and I'm definitely interested in knowing and hearing what you all have to say about this thing. Um, we still got the thing on the table. They're still doing the investigation. They're still doing an investigation into the shooting, school shooting that happened in Texas. How heartbreaking is that? Um, 18-year-old, an 18-year-old going to a school. First shooter. See the story about his grandmother. I am very unclear about the story concerning his grandmother because Camya, good morning, Camya, good to have you. In one report they say that he killed. In one report they say he killed his grandmother, and then the next report they're saying that she's in a hospital. But the very unfortunate part about that is he shot his grandmother, then left the house and went out there to the school setting and shot innocent children, elementary school children. It's so very sad. I think we have with us who we have either VP or we have my sister. Now who we got?
The morning tiger.
Good morning, Friday. How you doing this morning?
Am I right?
Now, Friday, I need to ask you this question, and I know you're gonna articulate this thing very well. When in a conversation, you're having a conversation with someone, you're having a conversation, it's starting to get hot and heavy. At what point does communication stop? What point does the communication stop and the arguing begin?
When either person is no longer listening,
Mm,
because now you're just now you get into this. I'm going to talk over you because we think that makes them have to listen, and then they talk over you, and then it gets louder and it escalates, and then the frustration sets in, and then now you're going away from whatever the core topic was that you were trying to speak to one another about, into now having who can be louder. Now somebody's feeling disrespected because they're being talked at, and now we're getting into this. Well, you be quiet. You be quiet. You're not listening. You're not listening, and we're arguing and spiral down into. If it doesn't get cut off, it spirals into name calling and saying things that you can't take back. It had nothing to do with the original purpose of the conversation in the first place.
wow, wow. So basically, you're saying it becomes a little too personal.
Yes, because now it's just a battle of pride.
Mm-hmm.
Now pride has crept in, and you're not going to out talk me. You're not listening to me. That's not what I said. In which maybe what was um, heard isn't what was said, but then there's a way to do that, and it's only through communication training and counseling that some of the techniques that I'm about to speak on was even learned, but then it has to be used. So
Mm-hmm.
you can say what you say and then ask the individual, what did you hear? And allow them an opportunity to say what they heard so that it can be clarified versus just saying what I say, you don't need to listen to me. You're so stupid. And then
Wow.
now we're somewhere else in the
Hmm.
conversation and not even achieving the goal of expressing yourself in a way that actually be heard.
Do you think a lot of times people just I can say something to say I can say something to you and mean it one way, but you could take one little small little piece of what I said and turn it into something totally different from what I said, igniting an argument. Do you think people just take bits and pieces or hear what they want to hear in a conversation, thus
We're
turning it?
definitely in that. We definitely are in and have been conditioned to a soundbite society in a soundbite type of way. So then we initially, and this is not a bad thing, right? We receive information on a level of which we can comprehend it, and a lot of times emotions play into that. So that's why it's also important to pick the right environment and the right time to have such conversations, um, depending on the conversation.
Hmm.
So I probably would not want to have my husband come in the door straight from work and even if I am wanting to have a conversation of something that has frustrated me, maybe it's not of just setting caps on things and actually tightening them down, right?
Hmm.
It's a very small thing, but it's not the right time or the place to have the conversation right coming into from work through the door, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So those play a part in how information is received. So then, even though I may not even think it's all that much, it's just maybe I want to give a reminder, like, hey, you didn't tighten the cap down on the toothpaste,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Not a big thing, but what's probably going to be heard is I didn't do something right again,
Hmm. Yeah.
or nagging or whatever. It could be anything. I don't have like a great example, but yes, a small piece of information can be misconstrued and taken in a different way. And then if that individual is caught off guard or you've not set the right tone of the environment, or the timing, then it can explode and cause a argument or a situation to occur that doesn't achieve the end goal of just either bringing awareness and or exchanging information to produce a long lasting change.
Yeah. I went in that bathroom and I sit down and you ain't even put the seat back down. And that thing was so
You didn't
cold.
put the
You
seat down.
you didn't even put the seat back there. How in the world you gonna go in there, you the bathroom? You know you gotta put that seat back down. And I heard you say that is really based on timing because when somebody first walk in the door, that's not the kind of conversation they want to have. They like I say they had a long day at work or whatever, maybe even frustrated from work, and then they come here and the first thing they hear you say, well, you done did it again. What's wrong with you? You don't know how to put that seat back down. I sat on that seat and it was so cold. All you do is put it back down. Well, why did you put it down before you sit down? And then that's a whole different conversation. And
Whole different one, right?
exactly. And that could transition into something different from what the intentional intent was.
Now you're spending more time apart than together because now you don't want to be bothered. You're in different rooms. Somebody's sleeping on the couch, depending on how long you're going to be the test of will,
Mm-hmm.
and and all for what?
All for what? Because of a doggone seat. Lord my Jesus. Lord my Jesus. Captain Leonard, good morning. How you doing this morning?
Good morning, Raheem and the Morning Glow family.
We're asking the question,
Good
Leonard.
morning.
We're asking the question, where do communication end and an argument begin? You're in a conversation with somebody and you see it started to go sideways. At what point, and I know it's difficult to pinpoint, but at what point does the conversation communication stop and the argument begin?
Um, I think you know ahead of time what could be an argument,
Mm-hmm.
so you should try to avoid it. But like certain people say certain things. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, I'm not gonna beat around the bush,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you say something, or if we're having a conversation and you say something crazy that I don't care for, it's gonna be nasty
Mm-hmm.
because I'm gonna ask you right, what the f did you just say?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Point blank. Period.
So, but because I don't go back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
but I will check you on if you say something that I know is aggressive
Mm-hmm.
to try to because I'm just blessed to be in a relationship where I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's not something that me and my spouse deal with, but there are issues with other people that but we don't have conversations anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cut them off.
Those types of people, right? Because one, it may seem hard to believe, but I'm not very argumentative.
Mm-hmm. What?
No, not at all. I talk about issues and things like that, not petty foolishness.
Mm-hmm. Watch this. Hush your fuss.
You know, but you can tell that some people's conversation is very selfish.
Mm-hmm.
So those people I usually don't engage very much, and they have a tendency not to engage me. That's the blessing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I'm not gonna put no filter on it for you. I'm nice to you
Mm-hmm.
and your show, because
Mm-hmm.
that's why you asked me to be here to share
Yes.
things, and I'm making a commitment to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But personally, I don't tolerate no bull.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
good.
we're not gonna really argue
Mm-hmm.
back and forth like selfishly, because that's usually it can escalate,
Yeah.
and then before you know it, you got people hollering at one another,
Mm-hmm.
and just all kind of just weird stuff that you don't need. I try to avoid that type of thing.
And like I was saying earlier, man, we ready to go to the phone line. I got two songs on the phone line as well. But before you know it, man, it can escalate into something where it could become a physical thing, or people pulling out weapons and all kind of stuff. Man, they really trying to do each other based on an argument or the turn in the argument. And I don't think it's really that serious,
And
man.
it's really worthless. It's
Yeah,
usually
yeah.
always worthless.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, exactly. And so I asked a question earlier. I'm gonna take this to Tucson. Tucson, good morning. How you doing this morning?
Doing well. Good morning.
Tucson always start off when we have a conversation. He said,
Everybody bell.
Saved by the bell. There you go. But let me go to you, Lenny. Tucson, he
Yeah,
got
go
a
ahead.
call
Go
just
ahead.
came in. And we got I got to hear Friday, man. Friday, no Friday got an intake on this right here as well. But do most people know? Do most people know when to turn away? When okay, this thing is going south, or are they more interested or so involved in the conversation or the argument that they want to just make their point? I gotta make
That's
my point.
Yeah, that's usually what it is. I mean, people know when they should turn away, they just don't,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't want to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Either they're self-seeking, and those are usually how a lot of people are.
Mm-hmm.
They're self-seeking. They just want to be heard. They don't want to listen. They may be a person that's not in control of their emotions very well.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people whose normal relationships, I believe, are like that. And me and my wife, sometimes we wonder why certain. Oh, we couldn't do that every day. It
Yeah.
would be exhausting
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
always be fussing about dumb stuff all the time. It's just a blessing to be. It, if you're going to have a long term relationship with somebody, that has to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
That has to go. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't see how it's gonna last, and you constantly hurting one another, and constantly having to apologize because of what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Shut your darn mouth if you don't know what to say.
I'm so glad you said Darn.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine somebody sitting there just like, say, for instance, if I was married to one of them women that run their mouth and always upset and picky, and no, man, I'm not doing that
Mm-hmm.
every day with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why? Why? It makes no sense.
Just drain it to me. It's just draining.
Yes,
I,
and
I
it's
couldn't.
very negative.
I couldn't live that way, man.
No, I couldn't either.
I thank God for my wife, man, because we don't
Yes,
go through that foolishness, man. Hey, we just don't. We married right now 25, man. We've been married for 25, and we've never had those. We don't had moments now. We don't had
hmm
our moments.
and
That's
I'd be married 23 in July,
that's
and
us. Yes, sir.
we're just not arguing like other people and doing
Mm-mm.
that type of thing. I think that's why we last.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things, is because nothing is worth upsetting the other person about.
That's right. And I said this thing a long time ago, man. I actually I got this from, and I gotta go to Friday. 'Cause I know she got something on her heart right now. But my thing is, I got this from an old gentleman a long time ago. First couple of years of marriage, he said, "Look here, when you get married, never, now I don't care." He said, "I don't care what it is." He said, "Don't never let your wife outlove you." Oh, what?
Right.
He said, "Don't let her outlove you." And I'm like, "Man, what are you talking about?" He said, "Listen, always outlove her, you know." And he said, "Don't. It's not a competition." He said, "Marriage is not a competition." But he
Right.
said, what he did say, he said, "But if you continuously try and outlove her, then she always going to feel loved."
Yes.
I was
I
like,
think that is very
"Wow."
good. That is very good advice.
I was like, "Leonard, that
That's
man, that
wisdom.
yes, sir, yes, sir." And like I said, was older. He told me, he said, "Look, if you're always trying to outlove her, she will always feel." Man, that give me chills even listening. Man, and that's what I try to live by. Man, I never want my wife to outlove me.
Exactly.
And so, that way she'll always feel and know that she is loved, regardless of what we go through or how we go through it. One thing she'll never be able to doubt, that joker, that joker love me now. That joker love me.
And that's how it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And too many people are married trying to challenge one another, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
marry somebody just to take your frustration out
Mm-hmm.
on.
Mm-hmm.
And no, no, I'm sorry. I don't know what you heard. You're
Exactly.
wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You're wrong. And
Absolutely.
that's what it should be about, pleasing the other person.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Absolutely.
what you need to be focusing on.
Yep. And take the focus off yourself. Take the
Right.
focus off you. Hopefully you're gonna be all right. But make sure that person. Hopefully you're gonna be all right. Let me go to Friday. We got a couple other callers that just called in. I want to get to them as well. But Friday, what's on your heart? Friday. I think Friday may have stepped away for a second. Tucson, you back with us? Tucson, you back with us?
Hello?
Yeah, Friday. Go ahead, sis.
Not yet.
Oh, okay. She would always say that somebody in a relationship always got to have sense. But that don't mean it's you or that person, and not just in your marriage, right? In
Mm-hmm.
any relationship, that somebody always has to have sense,
Mm-hmm.
and sense enough to know to be quiet, sense enough to know when to, you know, stand up, sit down, whatever the situation calls for. That you both can't be senseless, because then that's not going to account or amount to anything but destruction. Because it does become a test of wills and pride, and to what was said already. Yeah, now we're not even arguing a point or communicating information. We're just trying to see who can outshine the other person, and that's not
Mm-hmm.
going to be a winning solution to anything.
Exactly. Exactly. Rico, good morning. How you doing this morning?
Man, I can't complain, man. Welcome to a new day, everybody.
Hey, welcome to you as well, brother. We're asking a question. At what point, Rico, does conversation or communication stop and an argument begin? And do most people even care?
Do most people care?
Yeah. Because most people
I
just,
mean,
they gonna argue.
yeah, I guess I mean, it depends on how far it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. Some people do like to argue, but then you got to pick and choose who you argue with,
Mm-hmm.
because some people don't like to argue fair. They might communicate differently. That's the
Mm-hmm.
whole thing. As I was listening to y'all talk, you start talking about people getting along in relationships and walking away. You know what I'm saying? The thing is knowing how to communicate. That's
Mm-hmm.
why it's so important to come up in a stable household with a mother and a father, to see how two people interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
How sometimes people have to sacrifice their pride, or
Mm.
just sit back and let the other person be wrong sometimes, and then they can learn the hard way. But that's not today's time now.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to a lot of modern women over the last 20 or 30 years talk about those women from back in those days were stupid, the ones that made that sacrifice. And so now we see what the consequence is. No families, no two-parent households,
Mm-hmm.
because people they don't know how to communicate correctly. They take the easy way out and say, well, it's either my way or the highway. They don't want to sacrifice their pride. And so, they lack knowing how you have to reciprocate respect. I heard you saying if you love properly, you'll get love back. Well, it
Mm-hmm.
depends on if that person is only a receiver, a consumer.
Mm-hmm.
So, everything has to be about reciprocation. And most times, if one person is angry, it's going to take a lot for that other person to sacrifice, and be quiet and stay in that relationship. But in a lot of situations, those toxic relationships are the ones that last because they came out of toxic environments. So they think that's how a relationship is supposed to go. They think if you don't argue and cuss and fight, the other person don't care about you.
Wow.
That's dysfunctional.
Very.
That is very dysfunctional. But that is the facts. If you watch some relationships and look at it from the outside, you see a lot of them that look very dysfunctional, but they stay together.
Wow, that's good. And it does happen, baby, because I've seen situations where people have said, men and women, majority of the time is women, say that if he's not hitting me, he don't love me. I was like, wait a minute, sister, hold on. So you saying that if he do not hit you or abuse you, then he don't love you? You saying he don't care enough to, that's kind of twisted to me. And good morning, Lisa. Good to have you. Phone line is open 508-924-3521. 508-924-3521. Leonard, talk to me, brother. What's on your heart?
Oh, about particularly that comment you just made.
Yes. So I heard people say a lot of the time it was women say that if he don't hit me, then he don't love me. I'm like, wait a minute. How does that go together? But that's what they feel, because like Rico said, sometimes they come from a dysfunctional family, and when they coming from a dysfunctional family, that is the norm. Fighting, beating each other down, and all kind of stuff. And if a person don't do that to them, they feel as though they're not loved.
Well, usually I don't interact with people like that, so I don't know about what they, there's no good reason for domestic violence. However, you need to find out. It's more of you may have some type of sick obsession with violence. I believe it's sadomasochistic in nature, actually.
Wow.
And this notion, because it's an absurd relationship. That someone would hurt you and you would long to be in a relationship with them. That's sadomasochistic almost.
And think of what mess, if you have kids or if there's kids around you, what message are you giving to the kids if you feel this way, and then you're displaying this in front of the kids, and now they get the idea in their mind.
I ain't never seen nobody grinning and happy about being beaten.
No.
So children are not at that level where they're looking at it that way. They detest most children are very, very reactional towards violence. And it's not something that they're going to grow up believing. That's why when you made that one statement, I can't really agree with that as another person's issue, because it's too complex when it relates to why people allow themselves to be violated this way.
Yeah.
And it's a very adult decision. Children don't make a decision to love to be hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
They're too reactionary. So they'll see it and know it's wrong, even as a little child, because why you hitting my mama? Why you do? No, that's never acceptable with the child.
Yeah. What you doing that for? And they can ask you the question.
Exactly. That's usually how children respond to things. They don't respond to things saying that's cool or that's okay when you're being hurt. Even if you're unfair with little children.
Yeah.
They'll tell you immediately. They feel like you being unfair.
That's not nice. That's not nice.
Because you're around your grandchildren.
Yeah. They'll tell you in a minute. That's not nice. That's not nice.
They're not going to choose to do the bad thing that's not nice. Because that's at that developmental point where you have to correct them. Even as a grandfather, you probably say, you know what, that ain't nice.
That's right. You're right. You're right. And let's and see you. Everything has a potential of being a teaching
exactly
moment. And so if you take it and you use it as such as a teachable moment, you could be molding them in a very positive way in comparison to letting society mold them in a negative way.
Right. Now the thing that you first see is children will hurt them. If they have problems with themselves, they'll hurt themselves first. And that's why you have these children, that have these issues with cutting and things like that. When they mature, even suicide attempts and things of that nature become very common with these types of children. And for whatever reason they're doing it is very complex, but everything is not the same.
Let me tell you something, and this is totally different. I'm going to go to Tucson because he's back as well. This is something totally different, man. I know I'm jumping into somewhere else, but we're gonna come right back to this. But it just came to mind when we were talking about the kids. My wife and I went to vote the other day. We went out to vote, and there was a couple in front of us. You know, happened to be a Caucasian couple, young couple, and they had their little daughter. The daughter had to be about three years old, probably about three. I don't even think she was four. And they were talking, and we was behind them, and we got into a conversation with each other. And then the little girl, she started asking questions. She asked a question, Tucson. She asked this question. She said, "Why are we here?" The mother said, "Baby, we here so we can vote. We here so we can vote." And the little girl asked this question. She said, "Why?" And and the mother and the dad looked at me, and we all started laughing. And I looked at the dad. I said, "No." I looked at the mom. I said, "Now, how do you answer that? Now, how do you answer that question? Why do you have to answer it in a way that a child would understand?" So you're talking to a child, like I said, 3, 4 years old,
Mhm.
and she's asking, "Why do you vote?" And they just said, the mother just said, "It's the right thing to do." And I looked, I said, "How do you answer it? What do you say?" Tucson, how do you deal with that? Now you're talking to a 3-year-old. You're talking to. I want to keep that in your mind. You're talking to a 3-year-old. Now you're talking to a 3-year-old mind.
Mm.
Yes, make it a little more complicated, don't it?
Well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
go
yeah.
get you something to drink. You want some? Look, you want some candy? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how to. I guess we gotta improve on our communication skills
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
them kids are sharp.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you might have a point because they're 3, 4, 5 years old. They'll ask that question.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
anything above that, because I don't know if I don't know what was wrong with us or what was right with us. When we were coming up, what our parents said, that was it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There was no question. That was just because I said so.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was their answer to
Mm-hmm.
us, to me.
Mm-hmm.
I know. And then if a question came on after that, uh, I don't know about nobody else. And I didn't, don't y'all think my parents abused me, but they shouldn't have popped you in the mouth
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
because they thought you was getting smart then.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
kids now, they're already smart. They're
Yeah.
not getting smart. They
Mm-hmm.
come out smart.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you gotta maybe because you have to learn how to uh, have your voice, have
Mm-hmm.
your say about certain matters. But you're talking to a 3-year-old, so
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. Go sit down somewhere.
But see, and that's the thing, and that's one of the things I loved so much about my grandmother, man. I could ask so many questions, and she would sit me right on her little lap, man, and she would answer the questions for me. She'll answer, "Well, baby," she explained this to me, "Well, baby," and and y'all, I always been the question asker, man. I always had a lot of questions, and she never turned me away, man. She always answered my questions and took the time to answer, regardless of what she was doing. She'll take that time and answer my questions as long as it took, and then she'll get back to what she's doing. And that's why I love her so much. Rico, how do you explain that to a 3-year-old, 3 or 4-year-old? Why do we vote? Now you're talking to a 3-year-old mind. How do you do that, Rico?
I do it the same way your grandmother and my grandmother would have did it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll sit back and relate to the fact that I have to respect their age,
Mm-hmm.
but also respect that they had enough intelligence to even ask me that question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I have to put myself in that mindset to remember now, like these ain't just something that I could just throw out there and say because Santa Claus told us to.
Yeah.
There's an intelligent question.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
from that point forward, I'll have to break it down to being fair.
Mm-hmm.
and going from being fair and sharing with friends and sharing with people that don't have to rights.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you go from the rights, you start saying about people living together and getting along and having representatives. I mean, you have, people to speak for you. You have to break it down to layman told. You can't use no college educated language.
Exactly. You can't. Because that's not the mind you're talking
You
to.
know,
Mm-hmm.
you got to be able to meet them at their level. Donna says that all the time. You got to meet people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to meet that child where they are, and you
Mm-hmm.
have to remember what it was like when you were a child.
Yeah.
I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing about if you have enough, I don't want to say empathy, but if you can actually just tap into how other people feel and where they are, you can understand that if they're asking questions, they're interested.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not asking questions, but they're watching you, they understand already.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So that's something else that a lot of parents have to pay attention to, the fact that a lot of stuff you're doing, you think they don't know what you're doing, but they do know.
Mm-hmm.
They just ain't saying nothing because they know they open their mouth. Like don't say you might get popped in the wop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they already know it's wrong and they don't want to start no trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that little young brain computer is self motivated. It's a computer, but it's the most powerful computer because the regular computer waits on programming.
Mm-hmm.
That little human computer is curious. It seeks programming.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever you're doing and whatever it's seeing in this environment, that's what's going to get programmed into it. So, I mean, those are teachable moments. Like you said, you have to sit back and realize what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a living, breathing, young, curious computer that's going to grab any information it can because it can't help it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And it's up to you to pay attention to it and make sure that you program it the best way you can and try your best to relate to where that child is so you can express it the correct way. Because if you just blow them off, that might be the time that they get turned off from politics all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 25 or 28 years old, they're out here talking about voting a waste of time.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be that big of a difference.
Mm-hmm.
That butterfly effect. It could be that big of a difference when they were 3 years old. The fact that somebody just blew them off and told them something that they knew wasn't right, but they couldn't get nobody else to tell them.
Mm-hmm. It's good. That's good. Now, let me go to Friday. Friday, how do we're equating the mind, especially a young mind, 3-4 years old, as a computer? How do we keep those viruses out? And what are some of those viruses that can infiltrate their minds? Friday got a phone on mute. She got a phone on mute. Let me go. Leonard, are you with us, brother?
Yeah.
Talk to me. How do we do that?
Well, one, it's like you have to remember it's a developmental stage. You should be straightforward. You should use proper words and things like that. You let people deal with how they process things. You let them handle that. But you're responsible for communicating directly.
Now we're talking about we're talking to a 3-year-old mind. Now we're talking to a 3 or 4 year old. Okay,
3-year-olds. If you speak to them, they know what you're saying if they understand English. That's why like say for instance, this would be a good time to talk about spanking. Once a child becomes literate, spanking really is not a good thing because they have words. So you can, first word you start off with, no. You don't need to go no much farther than that. No. And then you have to redirect, right? If they're reaching for something, no, and redirect.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do. So one, I can never remember not knowing right from wrong. Those decisions, my parents always put it in our corner to make. I'm going to tell you right from wrong, and then you're going to choose what you're going to do.
Yeah.
To continue to choose the wrong way may end up in this negative consequence. That's just it. And we stayed out of grown folks' business.
Is it ever necessary to spank?
If they don't understand words, and it's not necessarily spank. Well, in that term, it could be if you tap a kid on the behind and push them, shove them away from something. That's good enough sometimes, but it has to be repetitive and it has to be consistent. If one person used to ask me, the doctor said, "Your child is so behaved," because I taught my child that.
Yeah.
I mean, yours ain't behaved because you don't teach.
Mm-hmm.
You don't take the time necessary. And one, these are everybody. You don't automatically become a great parent. You have to study it. You have to go get some all different types of alternatives. If your child have this issue, and find out somebody who another child that has that issue, and talk to their parents. You know, that type of thing, to be a
Mm-hmm.
better parent, because that's what you want to do. Be a better parent.
Mm-hmm.
So one, you tell your 3-year-old everything else.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you tell them the right thing to do? You
Mm-hmm.
understand? Why wouldn't you tell them exactly what it is they want to know if they ask you a question? Why
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't you do that? A lot of people, like, one thing we didn't do, even my grandmother was like this. What's baby talk? If you want to teach your children how to speak correctly, you have to speak to them correctly.
Mm-hmm.
It don't, or else they'll learn it as they go, because it becomes very repetitive. Broken English and all those things. If you allow them to speak that way, that's how they wind up being partially illiterate.
And to your point, Leonard, I always had a problem, always had an issue, and people say, man, don't why you making such a big deal out of it? Because I for whatever reason I just couldn't get saying, like, instead of water, saying wah and all kind of
No,
stuff like
you
that.
shouldn't do that.
Ah, man, no, say water. What are you saying?
Yes.
What are you teaching that child? What give you want some wah? No, do you want some water?
Do you want some water?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, even my son, we had some issues with a family member or what have you. He was very young, and he came to me on the side and he said, "You know what? Such and such is not making best decisions out there."
Mm-hmm.
You know why? Because that's the way I've always spoke to him,
Mm-hmm.
like a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I talk to them and talk to them about those things that are important to them.
Mm-hmm.
You explain to me why you did what you did, so we don't develop this pattern of blaming it on someone else.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about your actions and why you did what you did. And I don't know is not good enough.
Yeah, exactly. Tucson, talk to me, brother. Tucson, you there?
Yeah, I'm wrestling with a mute button.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Talk to me. Go get some
What you want
Wawa.
me to talk to you about?
Go get some Wawa. Go get some Wawa.
Some Wawa?
Want to go
Don't
to
talk to no kid like that.
Want to go to bed? What?
Don't talk to no kid like that.
Yeah.
Stop it. No, you know how they talk about gaga goo goo? Don't do it.
Yeah.
You have that kid with a speech impediment.
Lord, you teaching them a speech impediment. You teaching them one.
Now he
Oh,
now
okay.
now he get to school late and come. Well, is it get to school late and leave early?
Mm-hmm.
And you wonder why he on the short bus.
Lord Jesus. See, Tucson, you don't took this thing in a whole different direction, brother. You don't take it in a whole different.
I mean, you got to talk to kids now. You can't say the wah and all that kind of crazy talk.
Want some milk? Milk.
And that's exactly what the child will say. Milk.
Mm-hmm.
Because they sharp, I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get ready for 3 of them coming.
Yes, sir.
I got 3.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Oh, your hands can be full, brother. Your hands can be
not
full.
Not my hands. They ain't gonna my
hands. He's sitting over in the corner.
How tough?
Hey, but you know what? I want to go back to something you were saying, because I never did get a chance to respond to that.
Okay.
Argument.
Mm-hmm.
How did you say that? I didn't want to. It's your show. What you want me to do?
Well, where does communication end and the argument begin?
When I stop talking. Because I'm not gonna argue with you.
Mm-hmm.
You'd probably be standing there by yourself. But when a person kind of raises their voice, that's an argument.
Mm-hmm.
It's about to break out.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is I say, hold up, let's start all over. Mm-hmm. Calm down, so we can talk.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you having a good conversation by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's useless. Because usually when an argument breaks out, both parties think they're right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
you're not going to win.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're going to have, I don't know what you're going to have.
Confusion.
Yeah, mass confusion.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a conversation with somebody at work yesterday, and I was telling them I need this done. And they was basically telling me that they were busy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just joking. Oh, okay. But I asked you, I needed that done. But your thing was you had your own agenda. So I stopped talking to you. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to do it. And since you have your time frame, we'll see how long it takes for you to get it that you're going to do what I asked you to do. But I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going back to the office. I still need this done. Let's see how long it takes you.
Exactly. And that's how you handle it, because you avoid a lot of different things in that way. Because if they want to argue, it's okay. You argue now. You argue like a real fool because you're over there arguing by yourself. Who you talking to?
They're talking to me.
Yeah, exactly. Charles, good morning, sir. How you doing this morning?
What's up, brother? What's up?
Hey, doing good. Asking the question, man. Where does communication stop and an argument begin? You're having a conversation and it's turn and it take that turn. At what point do the communication stop and the argument begin?
When you don't want to listen, when one person don't want to listen to the other person. Yeah, that's when the communication stops. I mean, you just arguing. Man, arguing is a part of communication, but then it's just an argument, like you said. That's when that person just don't want to hear what you got to say. And you can also say when somebody put their hands on you the wrong way. You ain't got to touch me to tell me that. But yeah, that's when the argument start or the fight. Because that's next, right? Argument, then fight.
Then a fight, absolutely. It's going in that direction.
In that order, right? In that order. It goes in that order. So yeah, that's when communication stops. But arguing is a communication because they say, "Let me argue my point," but we're talking about arguing as a name calling and all that type of stuff.
A negative, yeah. It's a negative, yeah. That's a negative.
Calling each other names, and I think once that, once the rational part is gone. Now, when is the rational part gone? When you just stop listening to each other, as for in a disruptive way. Because like I think that was Toussaint, right?
Yes.
You can stop listening and not be arguing. Because he stopped listening. He wasn't arguing, he just went into the conversation no more. You do what he said. Ain't no more, as they say, ain't no more talk. As they say, ain't no more tongue wrestling.
Yeah.
We ain't doing that. We're just gonna do this or do that. But yeah, that's when it starts. The argument starts when people just stop being rational and just start hollering out stuff.
Exactly. Friday, you back with us? Friday, you there?
I'm here.
Okay, what's on your heart, sis?
No, I'm just listening at this point. I think all strong points are made. I think the only thing I would add on what you actually just said with Charles is that unhealthy arguments, right? So you can have an argument in itself is not a negative. You argue in court, right? You debate, but lending the floor to the other person to be able to say what they have to say, and you listen. And listening, not just to counter, but actually try to receive what it is that they're saying. So when you do respond, you're not just doing an emotional response to the last thing you said or one word that you heard.
Wow, that's good. Rico, how and this is we're gonna we're gonna touch on this right here. Then we're gonna get to our topic for the day. So we're not gonna stay on this part here long. But how complicated is parenting? Because we talked a little bit about parenting earlier and dealing with a 3-year-old mind. When you're dealing with somebody that's moldable, like a piece of clay, how important is it that you be the best parent that you can be?
I mean, it's very important. I mean, that's what you just want a one word answer on that one.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't nothing to go into detail about.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important. It's the most important thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I got to go into detail about it, well, it goes back to being that young brain computer that's seeking.
Yes.
It's self-motivated.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't got to be plugged in. So it's gonna pick up something.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be what you want to put into it.
Yeah.
But it's gonna pick up something. But I sort of want to go back to that question you was asking about when does it go from communication to an argument?
Okay, let's go.
Because I think the thing is it gets out of order.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's an order to a way you communicate properly, especially if there's nothing at stake, like a court case, like Friday was saying. Because I was thinking about that as everybody was talking. So a negative conversation turning into an argument comes when somebody has an agenda, like Dawn said. So a person may get rude, disrespect you.
Mm-hmm.
They may interrupt you, talk over you, throw little jabs or get personal. That's what can make an argument happen. Mm-hmm. Because of the fact that somebody has that agenda. But also it can happen when a person cares.
Yeah.
Because if a person has enough time, like a parent and a child argue, if you care enough, you will sit there and argue back and forth enough with your child. Mm-hmm. Or with your loved one, if you care.
Yeah.
Something you just can't walk away from. Mm-hmm. So yeah, small petty arguments where somebody just want to prove their point, or they just want to one up you, or they just got something against you, whatever, and so every chance they get, whatever the reason is, you can walk away from those. Mm-hmm. But some arguments you can't walk away from, and they will get, some conversations will get turned into an argument, and they will be negative because you got loud. You had to get loud. Maybe you got passionate, but if you care, it may go there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Leonard, what's on your heart, brother?
I think listening is the key, and an argument. One thing about an argument, there's opposing views in an argument. Mm-hmm. Like somebody says, you can present me with an argument. There's always an argument when it comes to an issue. And you choose which side of the argument you're going to be on. You understand that meaning of argument? I think most people, when they say argument, they think of something negative and heated. Now, I'm not going to do that with you. There has to be an opposing point of view. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You say yes, I say no. There's reason to argue. Mm-hmm. You say up, I say down. There's reason to argue. Mm-hmm. Because they are opposing views.
Yes.
And you can, there's a technique to arguing successfully. When you're presenting arguments and you're trying to convince people about your point of view. There are techniques to that. Some people ain't got but two skills: hollering, and how some people talk real
and
physical.
cussing.
And yeah, stuff like that. That don't make your point no more relevant. Because one, that's how I'm always gauging people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if you ain't got enough skills, I'm not gonna go in on you because it ain't interesting to me. It ain't fair. Mm-hmm. If all you got is a bunch of lies, we not arguing. Mm-hmm. Because you don't have enough content.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your point of view? What was the argument about?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have no facts, if you just come with feelings, you're gonna be easily hurt. Mm-hmm. Because that's what you brought to the table. Your feelings, and that's how your feelings got hurt. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Your feelings gonna get hurt with me. I'm skilled at arguing and destroying people mentally, so I don't fear nobody. I don't have to fear nobody.
I tell people all the time, man. And because a lot of times y'all are absolutely right. The person feel as though it's not going their way or whatever, they gonna quick to get loud. We start cussing or something. Again, I tell them in a minute. I say, look at here, man. We call you loud don't mean you're right. You just loud and wrong. You just loud and wrong.
That's
Yep.
And wrong.
Yeah.
Hey,
Exactly.
I got a question right here before you leave. I got a question before you leave off this topic, man.
Okay.
Because when you said that about the Wawa and the Baba thing with the baby, you know, and I always noticed that too. I always was aware of that brain computer because I know my thought process when I was young. I know where I went. I I figure every child probably had the same awareness that I had at a very young age. And I would always disagree when I heard women doing that.
Yep.
And as we talked about this, you know, at first I was like, well, is that just me being too petty? And then as I listened to everybody talk, I was like, well, maybe that's a woman thing because I never really heard a man do that unless it was one of those men that had a lot of women tendencies, or raised by a lot of women. But I never saw a man do that with his son. That you know, ba ba wah wah. No. I never saw that. So I'm wondering, is that a woman's thing? And if it is it because of a baby being adorable? That's their way of expressing, or that's the feeling that they get when they see something adorable. So they start talking like that. And since Friday's on the line, that would probably be something she could answer because I've never seen too many.
It is not a woman's thing.
Yeah, go.
It's not a woman's thing. In my opinion, it's not a woman's thing. I think there was some type of influence that occurred, and people thought it was cute, and so they started doing it, and it became popular, kind of like these gender reveal parties. And I've never talked to my son that way, and you know, even to the term of as I'm teaching him even anatomy, we're going to call it what it is. We're not making up words for it because I need to be clear about. You need to be clear, and I need to be clear about your communication, especially if you're in a situation where somebody may be doing something. You need to be able to express yourself. And so I've never, I never done it, condone it, or anything like that. I think, like I said, it was some type of influence that came, something from TV or cartoon, and then people started doing it because they thought it was cute. As we see a lot of things happening because people think it's cute, but it has no merit or benefit. And even to this day, people say how well spoken he is, and I'm like, because I speak to him because he's a human being. Now I will water down things for his understanding to his age, but I'm not making up words and shortening words because then that's just making my work harder down the line when you need to actually know how to say the word.
Yeah, you got to undo the message you put out there.
Raheem.
Okay, go ahead.
What it was is they took the lead from the child. If you say water, the child that's not at that stage of development yet will say wah wah. So if the parent takes from the child, they'll start saying it because they believe that's the only thing that the child understands. The child doesn't have the linguistic capability yet.
So who's leading? Who's leading in that? Who's leading then, Leonard?
But that's how it happens. It's so simple, and if you don't know you're doing it. Like say for instance, notice if you're around someone with that has a real trouble with speech, usually little kids. Eventually, they start to speak better. Yeah. Some kids with language issues have to practice more. But water is hard to say when you're that young. So the child is the one that's leaving it off. And then if you start repeating what the child says, then that's what, how we get into why it's so, prevalent, because you think the child can't say water, but you can. So you should say it. So the child starts to mimic you.
Now, I'm gonna tell you something, Leonard, and everybody else that's listening, but I had an issue, and this was my thing. Even my grandkids now, I do the same thing. They're a little older, they're 3 and 4 now, and so they're able to articulate themselves a little better. But when they was younger, they used to want something, and they'll point.
Right.
I said, hold on, what do you want? What do you want? Explain to me what you want. Tell me what you want. And they may not be able to exactly say what it is, but you can do more than point.
Yes, use your words.
I want you
use your words. Use your words.
Exactly. I want you to use your words exactly. I want you to use your words. Tell me what it is that you want. Your point, I don't understand. And I said, I don't understand that. I said, I don't understand what that means. Yes, sir.
I don't want to sound like I'm disagreeing, but I always noticed it a little differently. Because I always paid attention to, like, when I always held young babies, they would always look at your mouth first. And I think they look at our mouths first because that's where the sound comes from.
Yeah,
that is true, and that's why kids have problems.
You look at a baby when you're holding them. You stick your tongue out. They'll stick their tongue out. They're trying to mimic you. So when they start to wah, they actually, if you start with your mouth with the water, you start seeing their mouth trying to imitate and mimic yours at 4 and 5 months. So I don't know if it's actually, true all the time about us getting that and coming up with that language from watching them. Because I always realized from a very young age, and even as being a parent, that children, those young babies, they look at that mouth, where that sound coming from. That's why I think it's so important for people to understand when they say that a child is in the womb, they hear you talking.
Yeah.
That sound is so important. So what a child hears is important. And as they come out, they want to hear where that sound come from because that's what they're most familiar with as far as relating to you. And they see it coming from that tongue and that mouth, and they start trying to work their mouth.
Yeah.
And you can see them, they'll be looking dead in your mouth. They might reach for your tongue when they can start getting their movement together. Yeah. So I ain't trying to sound like I'm disagreeing, but I see it more on that side of us leading them, but not being aware or realizing that they are actually learning at that point.
Charles?
Let me say something. What we saying, Rico, about them leading us is that when they say the word wawa, because they can't say water, then we start saying wawa also, instead of keep saying water to get them to say water. You understand? That's what we're saying with that. And and you are correct as for them looking at our mouth, because right now I got friends who are teachers. Kids have more speech problems because of the mask.
Yeah.
All right, because they can't see the mouth moving. You understand? They do look at the mouth, but the more you say it, the more you speak to them correctly. And it's not, and I think it's not a woman's thing also. It's a thing, that a family thing, or something like that. Because I know a lot of women who say use your words and they'll speak out water. Because like Leonard said, the T is hard for a baby to say. It's just hard for them to say because they don't have their tongue the certain way. They don't have all their teeth. Look at a grown man with no teeth. How you say water?
There you go. See, go on over there, George. Go ahead on, brother. Go ahead on. Curtis, good morning. How you doing this morning? Lord Jesus. Curtis?
Hey, what up, man? Yeah, what's up, man?
What's going on with you? Man, we're going to get into our topic for the day, but I want to ask you the question that we started off with this morning, man. At what point does communication end and an argument begin?
When you stop listening internally. It's called active listening. Most people don't know how to do it, but I mean, and a lot of times it's because active listening is not taught until you get to the collegiate level. But the point that a conversation stops and an argument begins is because nobody's active listening. Both parties are trying to talk, trying to get their point across, right? So that's basically it.
Have you ever been in favor of having a child to say wah wah or bed or night or stuff like that instead of actually teaching them the words? Have you ever been in favor of that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why? Explain it to me.
Because you have to, in human behavior teaches you that first off, a child learns to speak by sound. They learn to speak by vibration. That's one of the ways that they can tell if your child is hearing impaired. Sometimes we just need to get our hind parts out the way and let the natural maturation or manifestation of growth happen instead of trying to speed up growth. Oh no, I want him to say it like this. No, let him or her maneuver through their manifestation of being a human being. Wah if the child is saying wah and they're just a baby, that is actually a bonus. Because you have some kids who can't even relay back to you the utterance of sound. Now, if that child gets to be 5 or 6 years old, 3 years old, about 2 years old, and they can't say the whole word water, then yeah, you might want to, you might want to take them to a speech therapist just to find out, maybe they got a palate issue. Certain words they can't say because their jaws are not formulated right. You know what I mean? But sometimes I believe that you just gotta let children go through their natural maturation and their natural process of saying words. I mean, you don't expect for them to say, okay, a woman carries a child for 9 months. The child hears in her womb, mama, 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 right? But if you really pay attention, most children, the first word they ever say is dada.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? But that's just a natural maturation. And, some women, might get upset. You going to say, your daddy, I'm the one that take. I don't know. Maybe the D and the A is an easier sound to manifest from the child's perspective, because if you listen to if you listen to the word
30 seconds,
mama, well, no, I'll just leave it there.
Okay. Anybody have anything they want to say to Amy?
But
He's going somewhere.
I just wanted to, I guess for me, just say, still to each his own, right? In terms of the encouragement, and yeah, I'm not expecting a 3-month-old baby to say water. That's common sense. I'm not going to beat the child for not saying it right, but if I'm not creating an environment for them to learn to hear it, then I can expect them when they get 3 and 5 to say it. If the only thing I've ever been saying is wah wah and shortening the words or not using the proper words for them to even learn it or know it. So definitely no discredit or ignoring the fact that there's a natural growth process that has to happen. But as the adult or the parent, and having already achieved that and knowing the properness of how to speak in terms of outside of accents and things of that based on the environment, the best way possible, I'm going to say the word in its fullness so that they can have that opportunity to hear it and repeat it and learn it, instead of sending them to school at 3, 4, and 5. And that's the first time they're hearing the proper sound, syllable, and blendings of words, because the whole time I'm up here doing, oh, it's so cute, wow, wow, oh, you said papa, papa. No, some cells you're going to have to learn how to form to say. S is a heart, that is correct. The D's are easier, so the child is going to say da first. However, I shouldn't be encouraging inappropriate speech patterns and think that they're going to grow out of that because I'm not providing an environment for them to.
That's good. I
want to throw something.
Can I come behind that man?
Hold on.
No, I want to.
Hold on one second. Let me pull Badger. Badger been holding on for a long time. Hadn't addressed me yet. Rico, I'll come right back to you. Badger, what's on your heart? Good morning, sir. How you doing this morning?
Good morning. Our oldest son didn't start talking until he was about 4 years old. However, my wife figured out that he could use sign language. So she started working with sign language with him, because he does have a speech impediment. He was born with it. It comes with, I don't know the fancy word for what he has. I think it's like polylopia or something. I really don't know how to pronounce it. But it's where he repeats words and he has a really hard stutter.
Okay.
And my wife is excellent at English and can pronounce pretty much any word you can probably ask her to say. And she works with him. He's also in speech therapy and things like that. So there are going to be times where they can have that constant how to pronounce a word or how to say something or a sentence. Sometimes they're born different.
Yeah.
And that's something else that people got to remember.
Exactly. That's
and
good.
Don't beat them over the head.
Yeah, good deal. Rico?
That's why I'm glad you brought up the topic of communication. This is a good example of communication and having an understanding and then maybe listening. Nobody ever said that you were holding it or we were holding it against the children for speaking that way or the babies. We said as parents, would we use that language, that Google Gaga language? And, you know, I think Charles had misheard it, but well, he said he did it, but the rest of us said we didn't do that. Now, we do understand that as a natural progression because the child has to learn how to use that mouth muscle. And in the process of them learning to use that mouth muscle, they're going to say things as they fumble along. It's not going to be exactly the way we say it. So Curtis says that about the baby saying "da-da" first all the time. Remember when I said that about the baby watching that tongue and the baby grabbing that tongue?
Yes.
And the baby sticking that tongue out and sticking that tongue out? Where it's easier to say D than forming your lips to say M or forming your lips to say wah or buh. You have to do things with your lips that the baby hasn't had control of yet. See, I'm telling you, I watch this stuff. I watch babies and I'm like, man, that's the reason. I mean, I realized this at a young age that's why "dada" was the first word to come out of baby's mouth because that D is the simplest thing you could do with the tongue. This sounds like what they're going to hear. So I would have to explain that to women. Why he say daddy first? He like you. Why he say that? You ain't even his daddy. I'd be home somebody else, but he ain't even your daddy. He talking about "dada." I'm like, that's easiest. It's not easy for a baby to know automatically to say ma.
Yeah.
They might do it accidentally. And once they hear that sound and they make it, they'll keep doing it. So it is good. Like I agree with Friday wholeheartedly. You know, I still believe on the outside looking in, I've seen more women do it than men, though. But
yeah, me too.
It's like with Chinese people. Chinese people have to, they have a problem saying L and R words. It becomes repetitive, learned behavior. And at the same time, they have to fix their mouths with this learn in a way to speak their language that isn't conducive to the L and R words. And they catch hell all the way till they grown, trying to say L and R words. But that is a learned behavior. So they're watching us. We have to remember that we are the example.
30 seconds, here we go.
I think the question was, is it okay? We'll not be rating children or beating them up for saying "wah-wah." That's expected.
Yeah.
And we know that I feel like we know they're saying "wah-wah" or "ba-ba" so they can get to the next syllable.
Yeah.
So they can learn how to say the T or the L or the R that Chinese people can't say.
Sure. I'm gonna tell y'all something, man. It's some words I still can't say. I still can't say still to this day. And I'm of a certain age, but hey, it's tough on these kids out here. Leonard, what's on your heart, brother?
Some letters.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, those stages of child development, everybody go through them. Some people have trouble with certain parts more so than others. So the best thing I think to do is to speak to your child clearly. And if you notice they have issues, you have to address the issues as they go. Some children read very early.
Yeah.
You know, it just depends on that particular child. Different things are caused by different reasons. Some people have issues related to physical issues, like you say, infirmities that you would notice, like cleft palates and all those types of things that you could notice. But simply just redirecting. When they say, like, for instance, you correct them if they say it incorrectly.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way, you know, children who don't get corrected wind up having issues, you know, for whatever reason. Even if there's, like you said, there's some words that I can't say today.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
if you practice them, you would be able to say them. But you've probably never really said, you know what, I'm gonna practice this word.
No,
you haven't. If you that's what speech therapy is about. It's really about practicing things the right way they should be done, the correct way.
Sure. Sometimes I just stay away from that word. I just won't say it.
Or find another word.
I found an alternative.
Right. Or find some people, they do, that's what you do. As you grow up, if you find out you still got a problem and it bothers you. But if you were a public speaker, you would practice.
Look at here. They want me to come and speak. Just hold on. Look over. Okay, you gotta take this word out. This word. Take them out.
Go looking at the stars. Go looking at book of synonyms.
Exactly.
Don't say mayonnaise. Mayonnaise.
Look. Exactly.
Don't say spaghetti.
It's like even with kids. Remember how you used to make flashcards and things like that with your kids?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's the same way you teach an adult.
Mm-hmm.
It's basic. You go back to the same way you teach a child to read, the same way you teach an adult how to read. It just depends on how far you have to go back and address that problem in the developmental process that caused it.
Man, I'm gonna tell you something. They had this thing when I was in school, man. Back they had this thing, and we're gonna get to our topic in just a second. They had this thing called speed reading. They taught us how to speed read. And man, I don't know, Tucson, did you have speed reading, brother?
Yeah. I was reading slow though.
Slow, get him.
Yeah, go ahead, Tucson. I'm not even gonna bother with you, man. Go ahead, man. What's on your heart?
Well, no. I was thinking about something. I don't want to change what you were saying, but yeah, we had speed read. But anyway, my biggest problem was not being heard. It didn't. I spoke clearly, but I realized that I wasn't talking loud enough because of shyness or whatever the case may be. And I had to shake that because the only one that was hearing me was me. Wow. But then my dad really, he made it clear to me, look a person in the eye.
Yeah.
Hold it down. And talk up. Speak up. Speak up. Speak up and speak to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you're looking at the ground and you're not being heard, nobody's listening.
Come on.
So that I had to shake that because if it makes it worse if you're not speaking clearly. But if you're not speaking loud enough and you're not looking at a person when you're talking, that makes it worse.
That's good.
So that's the whole thing that I was thinking about.
Curtis, talk to me, brother. Curtis, you there? Had you talk to me, brother?
Say right.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Curtis.
What do you want me to say?
What's on your heart, brother? You keeping up with the conversation with us?
I mean, yeah, I'm keeping up, but I think everything's been said. There's nothing else I can add, bro. Like, in Shakespeare, you taught. There's one slogan that always stays with me, and I try and apply it every day. Even when I'm speaking to y'all, when I'm speaking at work, when I'm speaking in front of a board, a panel. There's I don't even know the word to say to describe it, but there's a methodology in speech. The saying is that consonants bring clarity and vowels make music. I don't know. Rico's a musician and Leonard's a musician, so you guys might have heard that before. Certain notes you play kind of bring clarity to the sound that you're creating, and then certain notes you play bring like music, like almost like a rhythm or whatever. If you pay attention to the way vowels sound, they sound like almost a rhythmic musical sound. Consonants tend to be a lot more like hard and abrupt. And
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? So I mean, I try and live my life with that. I taught my boys that, and true indeed. Somebody said it earlier. You know, with children, like with my youngest boy been reading since the day I brought him home from the hospital.
Mm. Yeah.
When I put him in the car seat, when I put him in that car, since the day I brought him from the hospital, when I put him there, I'll never forget this because it blew my mind. You know how in the car seat, on the right side of the car seats will have a sticker, but it'll be in like Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And the sticker basically says, you know, fasten the seatbelt, whatever, right? And I kid you not, as soon as I put him in the car, his eyes went straight to that top word, and I saw his eyes moving back and forth from left to right, back left to right, back left to right. Then once he got to the bottom, it was like 4 lines. Once he got to the bottom, I saw his eyes go left to right, but then I saw him just turn his head and just look like at the roof. So I'm like, wow, I told my wife, my ex-wife, I said, hey, baby, I said, I don't mean no harm, but he a reader. She was like, what you mean? I said, he just read the side of the car seat. Because I was stunned. I was stuck. When I saw that, I was stuck. I was like, this is the first day he coming home. He didn't have to spend no extra time in the hospital. You know what I mean? 3 days of birth. You know, 3 days he was in the hospital after birth, and then we was able to bring him home. So that blew my mind, but it taught me a lesson.
Exactly.
That kids are visual. They're visual learners.
30 seconds, Curtis.
But understand things through sound.
Curtis, I'm gonna tell you 2 things from what I gathered from what you said there. One was what he would say, man, I wanted this joker gonna put this car seat on me, right? Let me read the instructions, see what it say here. Let me see if this joker gonna, okay, he did. He looked up at the ceiling, Lord, thank you, he did it right. that's the first thing. And Curtis, you threw me off, man. When you said vowel, you said vowels make sounds. I thought you said vowels, and I thought you were talking about fart. And I was like, wait a minute, Curtis, wait a minute now. What are you talking about, man? I thought you said vowels, but I thought you said vowels. I was like, wait a minute, what in the world? It didn't. Lord Jesus. Anyway, yeah, I get sidetracked sometimes, y'all. I get sidetracked sometimes. But our topic for today is this right here, and I'm gonna go Rico. Cut it out, Charles. Rico, I'm gonna come to you first with this. When and where? Actually, I read it. I'm gonna read it the way I wrote it. Where did African history begin? That's our topic, Rico. Where did African history begin?
Where did it begin?
Yes.
Well, it began in what is so-called Africa. I mean, man, I don't know why you came to me with this one, because I know you be having them Confucius type of thought processes when you come up with these questions. But this one right here, man, I can't look at this one but like plain and simple ABC. He said, where did African history come from? It didn't come from China.
But so, see, what
African history? I guess you mean man, what did they build it off of?
Yes. When they say African history, we certainly we're not talking about like that, but we're talking about where did it begin? Where did the African history really basically begin? What was the starting point? And some people say African American, because some people think that our history started when we came over here on the slave ships. Think that our history started then. It goes way past all of that. But go ahead.
Yeah, it goes back to, from what Eastern science says now. I guess you want to say the cradle is Ethiopia. Somewhere up in there, I think that's where they say the cradle of civilization began. And then some people say it began over in Iraq somewhere. You would have to study Eastern history for that. But now, if you want to talk about where did our culture come from, I think it came from the beginning of learning to survive and nurture. Our history of our culture and our history is community minded, family minded, family oriented. So I think when you start talking about the cradle of civilization and the first woman being, the mother of earth or whatever, I think that comes with nurture and it comes with, caring about family and community growth. Because if you really think about that culture over there, it sort of, coincides with their history about the unity that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you want to say what is that African history rooted in, I would say culture, community and nurture. But if you're asking where it began, I can only say, in Africa, maybe in Ethiopia.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Charles, what do you say to that, man? Where did African history begin?
I have to agree with Rico on that. I mean, studies shows that even finding the oldest remains ever it's on the continent that we call Africa. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it's there. Not we don't even if it's in, let's say, Ethiopia, whatever, but it's on that continent right there. And in all actuality, that's where all things begin. But when you're talking about history is you taking note of those things.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Writing them down on walls or stuff, whatever they have, tablets or things like that. That's when the story of history is being told. But history starts on that continent that we call Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or in that region, because even if you believe that the plates separated in this, that, and the other, and how the world was made, you still got to understand that history had to start in that area.
Mm-hmm.
That's where our studies now show. Don't mean that in 5 years or 10 years, studies will show that a deeper point or pinpoint it even more. But as for the history of Africa, or the continent that we call Africa, it would be like in the region, in that region of I guess people say now it's Ethiopia or Iraq or something like that, but Ethiopia, supposedly now, I believe. And I understand that they found a skeleton of a woman,
yes,
or something like that, but it didn't start with a woman. It had to start with both man and woman.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that. Not unless it's like a worm and it's getting impregnated itself or something, But that's what it is, and everything that Rico said, that's the truth.
Absolutely. Curtis, what do you say to that, man? Where did African history begin?
Truth be told, African history.
Come on.
African history began with the building of the universe. As far as Earth is concerned, the history of mankind is African. That is true what Charles said. It is scientifically proven that the oldest fossils found were found off of the Nile. I can't remember exactly where, it's either in Kush or in Miriam, which is modern day Egypt or modern day Ethiopia, and they named her Eve. And a strand of her DNA, no matter what color you are, a strand of her DNA is in every human being on the face of the planet.
So are we all related?
We all related. That's why sometimes when you hear me talk, I'll say our Caucasian American brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, when you think in terms of history and this, that, and the third, the way I relate it is it's all a Cain and Abel, man. Mm-hmm. Brother is just jealous of the other brother. That's it in a nutshell. Mm-hmm. And jealousy can cause a lot of things. Jealousy, my grandma used to tell me that, a man will start with envy. His envy will move to jealousy. The jealousy will move to chaos. The chaos will move to destruction. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the maturation of human existence, that's what you're seeing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just at what point in those words are we at? You know what I mean? But the history of humanity starts in Africa. Mm-hmm. We can't refute that. And anybody who wants to refute it, they fool. I mean, even if you scientifically say, well, how did people get in Europe? How did people get in Russia? How did people get blah, blah, blah? It's called evolution. It's called the Great Migration. It's scientifically proven that the Great Migration traveled north.
30 seconds, Curtis.
Up to now. If you continue to walk north, you're going to get into Saudi Arabia. You're going to get into what we call the Middle East, right? Saudi Arabia, Iraq, all that. If you keep walking, you're going to get into parts of Russia, Yugoslavia, or what we now call Ukraine, and all of those areas, the Czech Republic. Then you're going to walk to where you can't walk no more, which is everything, which is Siberia and all that, or you're going to make a right and you're going to go all the way to China, or you're going to make a left and you're going to go all the way over to Britain, Spain, France, Germany, all that. If you keep walking during the Great Migration, it was something called the Bering Strait. The Bering Strait was like a nature-made bridge that actually, if I'm not mistaken, connected the European nations to the Americas.
Good deal. Good. We're gonna come back to you, brother. We're gonna come back to you. Keep that thought pattern right there, because I want to go deep in this, but I want to be fair with the time for everybody. So keep that thought pattern. We're definitely gonna come right back to you. Badger, what do you say to that? What does African history begin?
Indigenous. Having coming from indigenous people.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, that's one of the most powerful things that you can be a part of. A lot of times in society, we forget indigenous teachings. You know, the teachings of words. I'm gonna put something in chat so you can help me answer it. I'm not sure how to pronounce that word.
Man, I'm not familiar with how to pronounce that word, brother. You threw me that time. Hold on now. I thought you were gonna say some it and but or something like that. You threw a 15-letter word at me, man. Go keep talking, Badger.
It's a 15-letter word. But essentially, it's a type of society where everyone is equal. Everyone's treated fairly, and we all get along. Most indigenous people from all over the world have that similar teaching.
I think it's egalitarian, though. The word you got is egalitarian.
Egalitarian.
Egalitarian. Mm-hmm.
And it's in a nutshell, all are considered equal regardless of gender, race, religion, or age.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a class system, or anything like that. And they don't have nowhere near the issues that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to get from, and it's going to also depend on your belief on where everything began, and things like that. If we go from the Bible perspective, it'd be Ethiopia. If and some cultures have their thing that their people came from Mother Earth or from the sky or all kinds of things like that. But to me, creation stories are creation stories.
30 seconds, Badger.
Yet to me, what matters most is we need to remember the history that hasn't been skewed.
Mm-hmm.
And remember the teachings that we're all one.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And to me, that's the most valuable history out of everything. And probably the most important teaching we need to be passing on to our kids.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. Friday, what do you say to that? What does African history begin? Friday, you there? Come back to Friday. Unlearned. Talk to me, brother.
Well, particularly, there's various theories on why you call it Africa today and things like that. You pick which one you like, or you can go strictly on, like, say, for instance, to me, there's not necessarily a beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It's where you go to get your information. It was named after the characteristics of the place. For instance, some people believe it's the beginning of the world. It is the Garden of Eden, and everything came from that. Some people believe it's Alkebulan. Could be called that as well. That's derived from people who believe in that fact that this is the land of black people. So some people used to refer to it back in the day as Alkebulan, because that's what that was. Sometimes the Roman and the Greeks called it Africa because of a word that they have that has something to do with the weather in the region when they were invading the regions, and what they noticed about the weather. And so their name for Africa is close to that. It's close to Africa. I can't exactly remember exactly what it is, but it's like Africa. It's spelled with a P or whatever. And so then you have those people who were in India who first started those trade routes. You know, they started referring it to as just a place to the west of India. You know, which kind of sounds a little bit like that, you know, through that Horn of Africa area. So lots of people have different things that they call it. But when you talk about when did history doesn't begin. You go back and try to search for a beginning. But you can continue to go further back and further back. And the furthest back so far is one, we have what archaeologists find. And if nothing else comes before that, then they say, well, this is the beginning of man. No, that's the beginning of the one you found. You understand the concept?
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, just because you found that one doesn't mean that there isn't something else. But for the best purposes and best practices, if these bones come from thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago and ain't nobody else got no bones, that's theory. Because it can't be refuted so far.
So you're saying there could be some other bones out there that will predate the ones
they don't even have to be bones. You talking about what, the beginning of human beings in Africa or the beginning of the plants and the animals in Africa? So, you know, it just depends on what are you trying to find out. I mean, what is your actual question? Africa could also be attributed to somebody they say invaded Africa, and that person's name was Africus of some type, who invaded that northern part of the continent. You know, Africans let you call them African because that's what you understand. That's how you refer. But they don't call each other Africans at home.
Okay.
Especially from a national point of view, it's where they're from. Nigerians are Nigerians because they're from usually Nigeria.
Yeah.
That land that's how you speak to them about.
Hold right there, Leonard. Hold right there. I'm going to pull some more people into the conversation, man. Keep that chain of thought because I want to get back to it. Just like with Curtis, I want to get back to that. Tucson, what do you say to that, man? Where does African history begin?
Yeah, well.
Come on, Tucson.
Where's Ethiopia?
In Africa.
Where's the Euphrates River?
Same.
Northeast Africa.
Same.
It runs in the
same.
north.
Yeah, same. That's why I say same. Yeah.
As far as I know, or maybe there's something else. And Botswana is that a place?
Same.
In Africa?
Yeah.
Yes.
Same.
Okay. So as far as I know that, and some people discredit the Garden of Eden and where it was originally set. But that's up to them. I mean, you do what you want. But when we trace Africa and we trace the Garden of Eden, there it sits. You might not be able to find it. That's where it sits. That's the short version. Now, from there, you take it where you want to.
Good deal. Good deal. Toy you with a T. What does African history begin? And good morning. How you doing this morning?
Get married. You said African history?
Yes.
You said, what does it mean to me?
No.
The beginning.
No, what does it begin?
Where does it begin? In the beginning. That's where it begins. In the beginning. All right. Documentation says 52 million years. 525 million BC. It refers to the continent of Africa as being the first place where the earliest skeletal remains of humans were. Garden of Eden, like Leonard just said. But see, in order for us to really want the truth on what African history is, we got to be willing to know the truth of humanity, right? And humanity starts there. They can try to play these games all they want to with God and all the other little gods and all the other little gods. But it's one truth and it's one start, and it started in Africa. And they all white folks, Chinese folks, Mexican folks, everybody come from black folks. You got to be willing to learn and want to know the truth about humanity. And sometimes we know along the way it's been skewed. Why? Because we can have a conversation right here on this phone today, and everybody listening on tomorrow going to tell a different series of events. Would that mean you're lying? No, it won't. That just means that is how you perceive that information, that's how you process it, and that's how you put it back out. And if you think the ball was green and was yellow, that's your memory pattern. But to you, you're not lying. So, of course, information gets skewed. But do we really want to know the truth? But Africa, according to books, is the first place where the first skeletal remains come from. And a hot continent. I'm going to just tell you flat out like God told me, because, I went through all this, right, when God was dealing with me. God, how he said, girl, now, can't nobody stay out there in that heat all day long and stay white. Simple. You can't do that for 525 million years. But it's the beginning of human people. You know what I mean? So that's what African history actually means. And yeah, let's go back. We had different languages 525 million years ago. You know what I'm saying? So, we even talk, we probably just looked at each other and just said, ooka booka. Straight up. Where you from? Oh, ooga booga. That side right there. And we knew what it was. But here we are 525 million later. And what? We don't even really want the truth anymore. You know how hard it is for some people to digest the truth? But according to books, if we be 100, the truth says, earliest skeletal remains. Humanity starts there. Anything else we need to talk about?
Good deal. Good deal. Good deal. So much going on right now. So much. Curtis, talk to me, brother.
Well, the first, I was just on my AOL account, right? And it's crazy we talking about it, but here's what popped up on my AOL. My live account, my Microsoft account, MSN account. It says Earth will become one big supercontinent again, and it will probably kill us. But anyway, what amazed me is they show you a picture of how, in all reality, the continents fit back together as one, right? Now, where they got this picture from, in 200 million years, there will be no borders. Okay, so where they got this picture from, this might be a recreation or whatever. But please understand that although the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers basically empty out in what we call modern day Iraq. Modern day Iraq, Iran. You have to try and understand, what was it before it was Iraq and Iran? Because if you look at, if you geographically look at the map, Iraq and Iran was actually a part of Africa. At one point, if you look at how the Earth was initially basically one continent. Now, if you go to Genesis, in Genesis it talks about God separated the land from the sea. Well, could that possibly mean that at one point the Earth was one continent, and then God separated the land from the seas, right? So if he did that, then migration happens coming out of Africa, right? Or the migration happens coming off of the Euphrates, which actually bleeds off of the Nile when you realistically look at it slightly. It's separated by land, but it's almost like you could throw a rock at it if it's all pushed together, right? If it's all pushed together, then basically the Euphrates and the Tigris River would feed off of the Nile, because the Nile is the only river in geography that we know of that we say flows backwards. Nile does not empty out into the ocean. The ocean empties into the Nile. So if we're saying it flows backwards, once it gets to the wall, which is, I think it's modern day Egypt, if the continents was crushed together, then the water creates your Euphrates and your Tigris rivers. All of that was a part of Africa at that time. But then come the Great Migration, when people started migrating, and they settled.
Okay.
They settled, and they may have called their territory Iran. The other one called their territory Iraq. And that's what you have. And then when people moved further, they settled. Some kept going. They settled, and they called their territory Russia, China, whatever. They got these. So, at the end of the day,
you got 30 seconds.
You can't refute. Yeah, at the end of the day, you can't refute. I'll close with saying, at the end of the day, you can't refute in no kind of way, shape, form, or fashion where the original man comes from. It's not refutable.
Okay, stay right there, brother. Charles, what's on your heart, brother? Talk to me. Oh, you on the phone? Rico, what's on your heart, brother? Rico? Oh, Lord. Rico, I'm sorry, brother. I had you muted. You had some background noise. I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think we all realize that the oldest history comes from that region. They had history written before America even existed. They had history and writing on walls before Europe and England existed. So I think it's understood that all history comes from now, and some might go as far back as calling it from Kush and Kemet. It goes far back, Nubian history, Timbuktu. And so with that type of history, with it being known, it really goes to show you how much we don't know over here. Because, man, we think we're very educated over here. We really think we're educated, but there's so much more history out there that we don't know, sciences. And some of it has been intentionally withheld from us.
Yeah.
Because the truth would be sort of harsh for people to realize, and so now everybody that's born into this world, the culture that exists is natural to them. Like Israel exists now. The Middle East exists now, but the Middle East should be Africa. Well, it should be part of that continent. If you could really tell, it's connected. People look at Egypt and don't even understand that Egypt is a part of Africa. Because that is what has been created by man, that separated and divided it. I was reading something the day before yesterday, some shipping laws from slavery time, I think from like 1719. And they documented that they had loaded 6 or 16, I think it was 6 slave ships of Africans from Judah. And then they came back later on and labeled them as African Jews from Judah. And when you go back and look at that map from way back then, Judah is Israel. So wow. I relate those words, African Jews from Judah. And I'm like, wait a minute, things don't change. But if you never take the time or have the opportunity to go back and learn that type of history, then you will only be on the receive or have the program that current history has taught you, his story has taught you.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think it's when you ask that question, whether the African history come from, what I'm saying, I didn't even really think about mentioning Timbuktu and Kush and Kemet. You know, yeah, it's so much deeper than we can even understand. But you know, we don't really even think about how fact that there's so much more in the world than what's around us anyway.
Exactly. And there's a lot going on, man. There's a whole lot. This question is so deep, man. It's a real deep question, man. And phone lines are open. Want everybody to call in. Give us your input on it. 508-924-3521. 508-924-3521. Give us a call. We'd love to have your input. Toya with a T, talk to me, sis. Toya? We may have missed Miss Toya there for a second. Friday, you with us? Friday, you there? Okay, she just said that she was here. Badger, talk to me, brother.
I mean, I'm agreeing with what's being said. The history that comes from Africa is probably actually is the longest history. Almost everything can be sourced back to that. And I don't know if some folks want to be in denial about it or what. I ain't got no clue. I ain't no mind reader. But that's where it's from. You know, scientifically they've traced things back. DNA has traced things back. Every human being has DNA that comes from there.
Wow.
I know there is a theory or two that are out there that there are certain indigenous people that their DNA doesn't come from there. And I'm from one of those indigenous tribes. And they don't know where they began. But for the most part, 90% of the human population can be traced all the way back to there. So, and from there, all kinds of things happened. You have the Egyptians. You've got everything surrounding the Mediterranean. I find things fascinating because I research and look into and learn from the tribes that still exist there. And, you know, learn what their dances mean, learn what their music means, learn how they live their life every day. Because to me, that's a lot more powerful than today's society.
That's good.
I don't like living selfishly and all that kind of stuff like most people do in America. So when you're asking that question about history, how far back are you asking?
I want you to go to where it begins. I want to go back as far as your mind will take you.
Okay. Well, which creation story? I know about 30 of them.
Right now, you got 20 seconds. So give me one.
Give you one. Well, since this is a Christian broadcast, you know, pick up the Bible. It tells you everything right there. As far as that perspective.
Good deal. Charles, talk to me, brother.
What's up, man? Like Badger was just saying, man, everything points that way. I was also, you know, this is one of the things that Ray, he studies, man, like the way the migration and things like that, and how like Badger was saying, the people here, the indigenous people that are here, how their DNA ties with people that are from the continent of Africa that are like so close that it's the same, and nobody knows where it comes from. And it's weird because I know Ray was talking about this a while back, and this is where he studies this. And when he get down to studying something, he really get into it. Okay. But yes, it can go real deep, man. When you're looking at facts.
He need to be on here. He need to be on here today. Where you at?
Yeah, we'll talk about that later, man.
Okay.
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
I'm trying to get them on. But yeah, it gets real. It can get real interesting, man. If you really take the time, it can get real time consuming too.
Yes, sir.
Because
Absolutely.
think about it, man. If you do my mom did a 23andMe thing. She wanted to trace her. Actually, she was just trying to find out family members. But the thing went back so far as to saying that, you know, Nigeria, Cameroon, things like that. You know, it went back to saying that Native, you know, what we call Native Americans. And it was, you know, it was really, you know, something that I didn't want her to do at first. Because, you know, me being a conspiracy kind of, not really conspiracy, but pay attention to conspiracies. They looking for somebody or some type of people. So I was like, don't do it, Mom, because they're looking for some type of people. That's why they keep putting this out there.
Yeah.
And this showed a pretty good list of the different DNAs that she shared. And it was, you know, pretty surprising because then it made me want to think about, man, I might do it because my dad's passed away, so he can't do it.
Yeah.
So I'm part of him, part of her, and it'll show. It goes all the way back to our roots of what we call the continent of Africa. You know, and it's really interesting, man. It's really interesting.
There's a lot tied into this thing, and like Rico said, man, there's a lot of things out there that people don't want you to know. They don't want you to know.
Oh, I didn't hear that part. He said that, but you're right.
Yeah. There's a lot of things. Yeah. They don't want you to know at all, and they'll do everything they can do to block it. Leonard, what's on your heart, brother?
Oh, I'm just listening. You know, the history is there. There's lots of different perspectives. Like Badger says, there's some people who strictly believe in the biblical account of creation. You know me, I ain't never been big on the biblical account of creation in them 7 days. It's plausible. Everything is plausible, you know, and facts are there. We have archaeology. You can go. There's people that have done the work for you. And sometimes you have to go back and be able to check for yourself. You know, you're going to wind up where most people have. That's what makes one person's theory more accepted than others. There are people who believe that there are people here from out of space.
Wow.
Okay, so the conversation could go where anyone would want it to go. The thing is proving it. That's the thing.
Do you
actually proving it?
Do you believe there are aliens, Leonard?
Yes.
Okay.
Everything to me is plausible. I don't have this. It ain't this and it. I'm not that type of person. I mean, it is what it is. You can go and find out if you want. You can dedicate your life to it if you would like. I have a nephew who is almost finished with his PhD in world history. So history is what you go find, what you study. You know, I wouldn't be the type of, you know, we know the history of people who have tried to hide it and things like that. But truly knowledge, you know, if you search for it, I believe that you can find it to the best of your ability. You don't have to accept anybody's point of view, you know, and for what purpose? Just to argue?
Yeah.
I mean, what is your point for the knowledge? What are you going to use the knowledge for? Just to know? Is it just casual knowledge? Or are you using it to prove some point, to take some particular type of action? You know, books have been around ever since I've been born. I've always read them. So I'm not with there people trying to keep something from me or no, you got to go find it. It don't come to you. You have to go search it out. It does not come to you.
It's
and
out
never
there.
should you be under the impression that someone is indebted to tell you. Because they're not.
Exactly. Good deal. Let me go to Tucson. Tucson, what's on your heart, brother?
You know, I just thought about when Black history, when it was discredited. When did that happen? When they knew the truth, and you know, when we was watching all the biblical stories when we were coming up, and I was like, where all these white folks come from?
Lord Jesus.
I got lost somewhere because it didn't add up. And, the only time they showed some African American or black or us, and they were slaves. I said to myself, that ain't true. Because when you look at it, Egypt and everything else is in the heart of Africa. Everything that you can possibly go back to. So you don't have to just go to biblical events. You can go to scientific discoveries. And every time, it's amazing how every time somebody tries to discredit scripture, they have to use scripture to discredit scripture. And that don't make no sense either.
Want to tell you something else that don't make no sense?
Yeah.
How is Tarzan the king of the jungle?
To tell me how in the world that he can wrestle with lions and the tigers and the bears, and he come from England.
Help me understand it, brother.
Hollering at him. And he's hollering at him.
He beat up a gorilla. He beat up a gorilla. Come on, man. Really? Put a gorilla in the full Nelson and made the gorilla tap out.
Riding the elephant.
I'm just saying, man. I'm Friday. Go ahead, Tucson. Finish your thought, bro.
And his running buddy is Cheetah.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, bro.
Help me understand it. Help me, somebody. Friday, you there?
I'm here.
What's on your heart, sis?
This is just a great conversation, very interesting viewpoints, and to provide an answer to the question of my own, I would just say Black history begins for individuals depending on how far back they want to accept it. Not so much on a go, because you can go all the way back of what has been said already. The different pathways to get there into to the same point, in my opinion, which is referenced throughout the Bible. So I personally believe that in terms of Black history, it begins with creation of humans, but that's not something that everybody's willing to receive or accept. So for individuals, for them, it's for their mind that it's only going to be beginning where they're willing to receive or accept its beginning. Other than that, beyond their individual willingness to receive and accept information, I personally believe it begins with the creation of humans.
Wow. Say that last part. It began with what now?
The creation of humans.
Creation. Okay. I thought my headphones must be messed up, or I need to turn my hearing aid up. I thought you said the Christian human. Okay. Good deal. I said, okay. All right. Good deal. Toya, you want to tell you with us? Toya must have stepped away for a second. Rico, is Black history and African history the same? Rico, you there?
Rico, go to sleep.
Yeah, I think we might have just lost Rico. Let me go to Curtis. Curtis, what do you say to that, man? Is African history and Black history the same?
Yeah. You can't have one without the other, man. African history is the start of Black history. How do you disseminate? How do you? What's the grounds for saying one is and one ain't? I'll tell you something that I studied. I wonder how many people actually know why we was enslaved. What was the actual purpose of slavery? Because it didn't start with just having free labor.
Mm-hmm.
If you study, I'm just gonna ask that question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even gonna go into the why, but
go into the why, brother. We going deeper today. I want to go there. I want to go back as far as the mind could proceed, brother. Go where you want to go with it.
It's got to be earned, but anyway, I'll put it as basic as simplistic as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
What if I said to this panel that the reason why African Americans was enslaved, it was because we refused to tell something that we knew.
Mm-hmm.
So we was forced to do the things that they didn't know. See, when you look at the African diaspora as a whole, the African diaspora and the African society, culture, dwellings, whatever, was considered to be some of the most advanced civilizations to ever exist. The Sumerians are the first to create language, written language. Everything that evolves around our modern day society, arithmetic, even as high as calculus and trigonometry, is stated to be on the walls of Kemet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad Rico brought that up, because Kemet was the name of, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Egypt. I could be wrong, but Kemet was the name of Egypt before it was Egypt.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm thinking it was named Kemet before it was Kush.
Mm-hmm.
And I could have the two mixed up. It might have been Kush first and then Kemet, but I think Kemet was the name of Egypt. If I'm not mistaken, Kemet was the name of Egypt before it was even Kush. Right? That's why certain ideologies or certain ways of living in terms
30 seconds, Curtis.
Living by African heritage, it is almost mandated that you take a pilgrimage to Kemet.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see the walls of Kemet for yourself. And some people believe that if you go to Kemet, although you don't know how to read hieroglyphics, your spirit will actually be able to pick up what it's saying on the walls.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in touch with your spirit. So, when you think in terms of Black history and African history, you can't separate the two. You can try, and you can make a really good attempt and have a really good argument for why the two are different.
Mm-hmm.
You really can.
Okay. Good
but
deal.
Your argument is going to be incomplete. If you argue that they're different, your argument will be incomplete, because you will have to leave out something to prove that particular point.
Mm-hmm.
Where the person that's arguing the opposite can just lay out the facts.
Mm-hmm. Good deal. Let's keep this thing. Hold on. I'm gonna come back to you, Kurt. Don't go nowhere. Don't go nowhere. I'm gonna come back to you. Don't go nowhere. Rico, I want to ask you the same question, man. Is African Black history and African history, are they the same?
Yeah, well, Black history is African history, if you want to use the term Black.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess you wouldn't consider all Black people Africans, since they don't come from the continent of Africa now.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's sort of blurring the lines.
Yes.
Of past and present in terminology. But I can say that Black American history is a part of African history.
Mm-hmm.
It's a part of that whole story. We are part of those people that came here and were forbade and had that beaten out of us, that history. They didn't even want you to repeat the oral history, much less the written history. They didn't want you to know how to read and write. And what they did want you to know, it had to be European. They didn't want you to practice no type of culture or anything that went with what came from Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one elephant in the room. But the second elephant is a pink elephant. And that's the one that's saying that there were Africans already here before the European ever showed his face. And then on this continent, 10,000 years ago, 15,000 years ago, remains of people that have DNA that match the Aborigines in Australia and in certain cultures in Africa. Very close related. The Olmec heads, all throughout Central and South America and North America. So that's the second pink elephant in the room, is the fact that, once again, some history they don't want us to know. When you hear the words Judah and African Jews, say, wait a minute, African Jews? I thought Jews looked like them little bitty men that look like, I don't want to say what I think they look like, you know what I'm saying? But they don't look like, they don't, from what we understand, all Jews were sort of light colored, very light complected. Matter of fact, if you look over at Israel now and see what they look just like white Americans. So, I mean, you know, that's a whole nother history, you know, but yeah, I think Black history is African history to a certain extent. You know, since everybody came from Africa, all history is part of African history, because everything comes from Africa. So whoever history is written is a child of Africa.
Offspring, absolutely, absolutely. Charles, what's on your heart, brother? Charles, can't hear you. Can I hear you? Can I hear you? Okay, we'll come back to you. We'll definitely come back to you. Leonard, talk to me, brother.
What's up, Raheem? Your same question?
Yes, sir. Are they the same? Is there any differences? Where lies the differences, if there's any differences at all?
No, there are several differences. It depends on which part you're interested in. There's no one or right answer. You can, there is no such thing as Black history in Africa. You know, if you look at Black as a social construct, you could study African American history here, and that would be specific to the experience of enslaved individuals that were brought here. You can study it from that point of view. But you don't go over to Africa and talk about African American history, because there is none there.
Wow, you say there is none there. That's interesting.
There's no African American history in Africa. That's here, because it deals with a specific group of enslaved people from Africa and their experience here. That's a separate set of history that you can study. You can get a degree in it. You can get a degree in African American studies, and it will completely deal with those Africans that were enslaved and brought here. That's where that starts. You can go take a course in African history. Has nothing to do with what you're doing here. It's a completely different genre of history to study. No different than Chinese history or any other type of history. You could go and and study the history of a particular group of people in Asia. If you go right over to Riverdale, Georgia, you would be surprised at the number of Asian culture just in Riverdale, Georgia.
Oh yeah, community.
Right. The separate people from a separate place migrated here, and they maintain their culture, and they're those people. Like, say, for instance, Laotian people. That's not all over Asia. That's about those particular individuals from Asia. And that's not Asian American history. You know what I'm saying? So it depends on where you want to start learning from. That dictates what it is you're learning about. Like, say, for instance, if you want to learn about a certain group of Africans, particularly in Louisiana, they may be different from those that came from the West. You know, we're the descendants of slaves, which is a more contemporary word, because you're talking about those blacks that descended from slaves, not Africans that immigrated here.
Mm-hmm.
It's two different cultures.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
So you
10
wouldn't want to
seconds.
lump people together
Mm-hmm.
just for the sake of your understanding. You would want to get to the truth of the matter and give everybody his due diligence when studying them.
That's good. That's good. And that brings a whole different outlet, a whole different spin on what we're talking about, right? Let me go to Badger. Badger, what's on your heart?
I think I might have missed what was just last said. Well, you
About
said something about a twist. What's the twist?
well, my thing, what he was saying is you can't lump it all together. You can't lump it all together. You know, there's certain differences that you have to deal with when dealing with the question that we're asking right now. Is Black history and African history the same? He said because there are differences. There is no African history of African American history in Africa. That's very interesting because I don't know how you could separate them because that history is actually tied right back to that.
I I actually am with Leonard on this.
Okay,
um, so uh, I'm going to speak from a white perspective for a moment.
go ahead.
My genetic history.
Okay.
Uh, many months ago, we asked the question, what is white culture? So
Yes.
I started asking people I know from Europe, people from that study this stuff, and the only thing most of them could tell me is the only culture that was left over after uh, the Romans and things like that ran through, Britain, Ireland, Scotland, all that, is the Christian belief. Almost all of the Druidic or indigenous stuff that was in Europe at the time was practically wiped off the face of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So now they had to adopt a culture from another group of people in order to not be killed. So if we look at the suggestion of that and look at the way things are today, and then look at also the indigenous culture and what happened to them of America, and then look at all right. So I spoke earlier on the African tribes and how most of them live. Right?
Mm-hmm.
People are equal. People are fair. It's equality.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, those British flags and American flags and stuff like that started showing up over there and taking people, either from their own people or just went over there with their guns and took them on their own. It, that's a whole nother ball of wax, and brought them here.
Mm-hmm.
They were not allowed to practice their y'all's ancestors were not allowed to practice y'all's culture, the dances, the just the way of life. So if I ask you, what do your dances mean? What are your ancestors' teachings? Can you answer that?
Yes.
How many can?
I can't. Now that I can't answer.
So you're someone that can. There's probably a few others on the show that can.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go out and ask the general population that question, most of them, unless they have read it or went and visited, like they've done the research, they are not able to answer that question.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
So to me, when you're asking what is history, just like somebody asking me what white history is, I'm going to go through what people of white skin have done to other races. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to accept it. I know it happened. We need to talk about it. and go all the way back, as far back as I possibly can go, all the way to my ancestors of Scottish and the Bretonians and the Scandinavians and Vikings and all that, and how they were practically wiped out for in a lot of ways if they believed anything other than what the conquerors were telling them to believe.
Good deal. Got to keep it moving, Badger. Hold on one second. Let me go to Rico. What's on your heart, brother? Charles, come to you. I see you. I see you, Charles. Rico, what's on your heart?
I agree, but I still sort of think that they may teach African American history somewhat, because the slave trade couldn't have happened without African history being involved. So they have to tell that story too, of what happened to their brothers that they got sent to America, and how they didn't know what the consequence of what the end game was going to be. They didn't know what we were headed to, or what our ancestors were headed to. So I think that history may be taught over there, because they have some of the information that we need to know that we definitely ain't getting it from over here. So, and then on top of it, you have, like you say, your migrants that come over here. They know our story, and then they actually correct us on some of the things that we thought we knew, because they know more about the homeland than we know, the motherland. So some of the things that we think, like Badger was just asking that question about knowing what some of the dances mean. The only way we would know without going over there visiting or being informed by somebody from over there was if we could tap into our ancestors spiritually and feel it, and just have a good feeling that, you know what, man, when I hear this music, it make me want to do this and it make me want to do that. And that might be what it means to that culture, because you feel it in your bones.
Yes.
That's one part of the history you can't get out of your genetics, your DNA. So, it's possible that they may teach some. If they won't teach what we learned, they'll teach what happened to us.
Yeah, that's
because
good.
what we learned is his story, and they know his story ain't nothing but a fantasy or something created just to justify their behavior. But being that they saw what went on and they don't have to abide by this history, they might teach African American history, but they might teach just how the process works instead of learning the information that we are learning and taking tests and getting accredited by. You get what I'm saying? A lot of our standards and achievements are based on this education, on this history. But this history changes so much. So I believe, it's very possible that they teach American history, but they teach how dysfunctional and messed up it is.
Exactly. Good deal. Good deal. Charles? Charles, you there? What's going on? What's going on with your line there, Charles? What's going on with it, man? We can't hear nothing you're saying there, brother. Hold on. Let me see. We got Toya with a T back. Toya with a T. Talk to me about, is African American history? No. Let me ask you a question like I wrote it. Is Black history and African American history the same? Toya, what do you say to that?
I think that Black history is an extension of African history. One of the main reasons why I wanted to go back to school is because this dominion we have, they say if you go to school, get a PhD, when you start to break things down and you use their process, then, and you're a doctor of that source of information, and, it's considered to be credible. So what I always think about is how we talk about the Bible, is that everything is written by man. And when things are written by man, sometimes things can be kind of persuade to what that person will want you to think. That some truth is to be obscured when it's written by a human. You know what I'm saying? So everything that we're discussing, if we read it in the book, it was written by someone who wanted us to believe that specific aspect. But if we just look at it with common sense, and we know that this once was a continent that broke up into different ones, and there was earth upon it, it's taking me again back to the beginning, and we all start from there. period. So when you talk about African history, which they don't want to talk about it to this degree, when we talk about Chinese history, it's an extension of African history.
Yeah.
Every human being, every color, every race comes from that one continent where they say the black man and woman comes from. The whole Adam and Eve bit. If you even take religion out, it's still the fact of the matter that two people. I mean, some people might want to go with the monkey theory. Knock yourself out. Knock yourself out. But I'm not going to sit here and believe when nobody wrote about me transforming or 10 million years ago that we transformed from a monkey. I don't care what your studies say. You can get the theories all you want to. I'm just not going to roll with that. So I believe that Black history from where I am today in 2022 is an extension of African history along with any other history that you try to talk about or explain or diagnose or process or trace back. Every single last one of them is going to trace back to the beginning, which is African history. Absolutely. So if there's a difference, yes. You know what I'm saying? Just an extension of where we all begin.
That's good. That's good. Charles, we're going to try you again, brother.
Am I back? Am I back?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Got you loud and clear.
You said Black history, American Black history, and African history.
Is Black and African history the same?
I mean, American Black history.
Yeah, Black American history and African history.
It's together. It's intertwined because it has to be. History is noted, so it has to be noted on the regions that the slaves were taken from, or the regions that the slaves were sold from. I don't like to use the word taken. We were sold. The regions that the slaves were sold from, and and the regions in like who they were sold to. You get what I'm saying? So that goes like the history from Africa. It goes back. Like, let's say if you could trace back to the region that you were sold from in Africa, just like the people in South America, because there's a lot more down there than here that were sold from regions of Africa. So it goes back. It's noted there. It might not be noted here, but it's noted there on certain, or it might be burned. We never know. It could be destroyed. But we know that it was, they have dockets on where they picked up, where the cells were being made in Africa and things like that, or how many they picked up. They might not have names, but they have the amount of people that were picked up from certain regions of Africa that were sold by Africans, or what we call Africans from the continent of Africa. So yeah, it goes all the way back. But now as for our history here, because we have two parts of the history. Meaning our history here, hey, what's up? Good morning. Our history here is from here. So it's two parts to it. And who was that? Toya who was just talking?
Yes. Toya.
She was correct. Everything, if you want to keep on going back, I don't care who you are, it's all going to go back to what we talked about in the beginning. It's going to go back to that continent. So if you're a Viking and you trace your history all the way back, it's always going to go back there. You understand?
Okay, cool.
Go back to the beginning. But as for Black Americans and Africa, it's tied into each other, but it is a separation at one point.
And my curiosity is where is that separation? Where's that line of separation? That's
when we get on that boat. When we got forced to get on that boat. That's when the separation starts.
Wow.
And it separates in more than one way, because you got to understand more people were sent to South America also, so they have a different history. You know, but as for us Americans, ours separate then. It separates them because then we were sold by Africans to Spaniards, and we were sold by Africans to Europeans, and we were sold by Africans to Muslims also. So, or Arabics.
Arabics, yeah, Arabics. Let me go to our public citizen. Good morning. How you doing this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing all right. Yeah, it's a pretty important question because it ties really into what you guys were talking about a couple of days ago with the critical race theory and all that stuff. like how do you teach about race and history and everything and how they're related? And there's no consensus on how to do that. I think part of it has to be teaching about the origins, like you're talking about the origins of African history, and you look at the triumphs and the empires and things like the stuff that Kurt's talking about. That needs to be a big part of it because there's a lot to be proud of for sure in Africa. But also the other part is I think a lot of people aren't aware of the disadvantages that the African continent has. And there's this book that I mentioned before, Guns, Germs, and Steel. It talks about how the Europeans and the Asians had all these geographical advantages over Africans and Native Americans, which was why they were able to colonize our ancestors. And, because I think these things need to be addressed, because if they're not, people are left ignorant and they develop their own stories about why things happen, and that's when white supremacist attitudes and ideology comes into play. And then you have people, who are born on third base, and they think that they earned that. No, you didn't earn that. You were kind of just born into a privilege. And so there's a lot. It's a lot. It's really a lot of facts. I did my ancestry DNA, and I have African ancestors, Native American ancestors, European, Asian, all over. I even have a little tiny bit of Jewish. I'm like, where'd that come from? So we're all mixed. That's just the fact of the matter. We're all mixed here, and a lot of people. I sometimes just get a little concerned when people get, especially white people, when they get into this like worshiping their ancestors and like getting so proud of their race and all this stuff. And it's like, we're the same. We're all the same. Their race is something that people invented to separate. So, hopefully white people can get past their pride in their race, and every other group gets past that too, because it's not good.
Exactly.
That's how I feel.
Exactly. Good deal. Good deal. Let me see. Leonard, what's on your heart, brother?
I'm listening. You'll find out there's a lot of different concepts and things like that, and it just depends on, like, I hear people talking, I study. What do you study? Because do you study completely open? Like, say, for instance, if you say slavery to most people, they only think about black people in America. That's what they think. Black people. Slavery has existed long before America existed. You can talk specifically, if you want, about the transatlantic slave trade.
Long before.
That's a different part. That transatlantic slave trade is really what brought slavery to the Americas. So you can talk about it from that point of view. But you also can look at authors who wrote about slavery in West Africa and how they used slavery then. There's African scholars and also in African countries that have to apologize to African Americans because they did not know what they were selling their people into. So you have to be willing to listen to the truth of the matter instead of what you want it to be. A lot of people go in and talk about, I research, but did you research with bias?
Yeah.
Or did you truly go for the knowledge? Because the knowledge ain't always positive, and it ain't always pretty, and it ain't always something you like. It's just there. Here's the truth of the matter. Like, say, for instance, you have people like from Ghana and all these places. Portuguese is really was where if you go back enough, you'll see that kidnapping of people from other places was not uncommon. And they would simply go and kidnap and take people and use them for whatever purpose they wanted to. The Portuguese, really, in history, if you study it, are the people that really started pushing this negativity about people with dark skin. So they were selling and, kidnapping who they could and getting money for them. There are some families who believe that certain people just were of a slave class,
Mm-hmm.
or they believed that their daughters could be sold and traded into slavery.
Wow.
So there's different types of slavery
Mm-hmm.
other than you falling in love with the kind that your ancestors were subjected to. You would also have to understand that don't try to make the people in Africa who you are today. There's distinct differences between us and our cultures. The culture that you don't know is not yours. It's not.
Wow. 30 seconds.
You going over there learning African culture is just like a white person going over there learning African culture. They can go in there and get involved and do all this and do all that they want. And those tribes and people will accept them because they're more about the culture of the matter. They're not about what's going on and what happened in America and the relationships between blacks and whites in America. They have a whole different story of the white man if you listen to it, if you want to.
Get there. Hold on, Leonard. Gotta keep it moving, brother. Let me go to Curtis. Curtis, what's on your heart, brother? Talk to me.
Well, a part of what Leonard said is dead on point.
You said a part.
But I said it's dead on point.
No, you said a part. So there's a part that's off.
There's a part that's off only because we have written data that shows that there was a concern at one time about what has happened to us. Most recently, if you guys remember, the Guyanese president went on international TV and personally apologized to every African-American male and offered in reparations the opportunity for us to return to Guyana, in which they're willing to give you, as a form of reparations, a home to your standard. I think it was like $60,000 and an incorporated business of your choosing, as a term of forgiveness. He came on international TV and apologized and told Americans, if y'all sick of that, what's going on over there, we're partly responsible for it happening. If y'all sick of it, come home. That's one. Two, if you read what is called memorandum number 46, it's either memorandum number 46 or memorandum number 49. Theodore Brzezinski, which is Mika Brzezinski's father, actually wrote a I don't want to say a manifesto, but he wrote a memorandum specifically to, I believe it was Jimmy Carter, addressing that from a national, let me make sure I say this right, from a national security perspective. It would behoove him and his administration and the administration, because Brzezinski was a part of that administration. It will behoove him to stop the connection of, and I could have the administrations wrong, but it's been a long time since I read it. I read this thing way back in like 99. But they had to have a push to stop the African nations from inducing money into the civil rights leaders of that time, because if they induced the money, then the civil rights leaders would have the money they needed to take their pleas further. So you have that one. But Leonard is right, especially when he talks in terms of the Portuguese, because if you do your historical study and you read with a non-biased eye, the actual first recorded slave ship to land here was in 1512. The slaves actually came on a ship called the White Lion, and it was the Portuguese who brought slavery here. Also, Leonard is right in saying that slavery has existed everywhere for a very long time. I'll end with this. One of the things that I always ask myself, and maybe somebody can answer me, is when you look at if you look at a root cause of slavery, maybe we may find that the root cause of slavery and the root cause of those selling their own was the whole idea was to exterminate a bloodline. But we cannot kill it publicly because the people will not follow. So what we have to do is we have to get rid of it. So it's kind of like the British used to do with their royal families. If you violated a law, if they wanted you gone, they would blame you for violating a law, and then they would sentence you to the Americas. We got to understand, America was considered a primitive nation filled of savages. So the idea was, once we send you to America, you will not be able to live anyway because the savages will kill you. The savages will they will hunt you down, eat you, and you will not exist anymore.
Wow.
So there's several layers to this whole history thing and this whole Black history thing that, man, we could have a topic of conversation for the next 30 to 45 days and still not realistically touch the surface.
That's good. That's good. Let me go to Cassandra. Cassandra, good morning. How you doing this morning?
Good morning.
Cassandra, we're asking a question, and I want to hear your heart on this. Where does African history begin? Where does African history begin? What do you say it begins, Cassandra?
Where does African history begin? In Africa, I mean that would be the logical answer for me. Historically, that's where I would consider African history to have begun. But I wanted to sort of piggyback on what Kurt was saying, because my daughter and I did. We were very selective in which ancestry group we used, and we used African ancestry. And because we found that their accuracy was higher than everybody, than other people when it came to Black people. And so it was determined that my family, my part of the family, came from Sierra Leone, and I think they called the Mean people. And in Sierra Leone, the lady that is over Sierra Leone, what she said is, if you can prove that through African ancestry that you are of Sierra Leone heritage or ancestry, they will permit you to do the citizenship thing, which you can do that anywhere. You can do dual citizenship anywhere, but they would also work with you in partnering, with working from, America. People come from Sierra Leone. So my daughter and I actually plans are to go there next year, 2023. To get,
Cassandra, something happened to your sound. Something happened to your sound, Cassandra. It went down. It went down real low.
That's important. Some people think it don't mean nothing. And if you don't feel like it means anything, you don't care about where your family.
Cassandra. 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 Cassandra.
I know where my family members were brought from in Africa and brought over to. I know.
Cassandra, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Cassandra?
My family stayed right in Charleston.
Okay, we have an issue with Cassandra's line. I don't think she can hear me as well.
Right.
But yes.
Also, I would like to bring up, before I forget, this is why New Order sponsors every third Saturday trips for young people to the Apex Museum.
Yeah.
It is to teach them the panoramic experience for African Americans, and not just teach what happened here. So it's a very diverse history of not only what happened here, but there's a timeline of things that you go through at this museum. So every third Saturday, children 17 and under are free.
Yeah.
And they meet at the Apex Museum, which is right at 135 Auburn Avenue in downtown Atlanta. Usually, I think it's between 1 and 3 o'clock p.m.
That's good. That's real good, actually. Rico, what's on your heart, brother?
Yeah, man, that was all true. What Curtis and Leonard said. That about the slave trade. A lot of people don't realize that it started down in South Africa and South America and Central America way before it made it to North America. It hit the Jamaican islands. Where they got the Taino Indians and killed all them in Haiti before they came here. It was a drop off. It was a gradual process as they spread with that process for that sugar cane that they was I guess I don't want to call mining, but the crops that they were doing for the sugar cane. And so, with that being said, I still somewhat think that they have a keen eye on our history because they know that we are the long lost children. They know that we were brainwashed and don't know the history that we left, that our ancestors left Africa with. I believe they actually do embrace us to a point that we don't understand. We may assume that they don't care, but it sort of goes back to what I said at first. All history is African history. All world history is African history. And I was glad Toya said that word because that was the word I was trying to think of, extensions. Everybody's history is an extension of African history. So with our history being an extension of it, they have to have, I don't say they have to, but deep down inside, I feel that they have a relationship. And then on top of the fact that it came because of colonization, they have had those problems on their own homeland, on the continent of Africa. The same problems that we had with being oppressed, forbidden, having your resources taken, being killed, being murdered, being experimented on their own land. I mean, to where they had, you had certain names changed of countries in Africa based on European interference. When King Leopold, he killed way more people than Hitler did. They say he killed about 10 million people, and then he cut off a lot of people's hands. They're still finding mass graves now. He did that on the continent of Africa. He didn't do that in Belgium. He came from Belgium. So I mean, I think that history of dealing with the colonizer has made, is actually what made the Pan-African movement happen. I mean, that to me, that's sort of an indication that all history is related, just for the fact that Marcus Garvey and others after him have come with this Pan-African movement where they are collectively together with African nations working to come back together. So, I mean, I think they have more concern about American history or African American history, and they probably know more about African American history than we know.
Exactly. And that's the thing. You ask the question, why are they trying to conceal so much? You have to ask the question, why are they trying to conceal it? Why don't they want us to know? Why do they not want us to know?
Oh, right. That's what I was just ready to say. Not to cut you cross, but that's what I was just ready to say. I just seen, I was watching, I was watching MSNBC, I think it was, and the girl that comes on, the new black girl that comes on Saturdays. Her show is Saturday. She has a show Saturday and Sunday. I want to say it was Cornel West, but it might not have been Cornel West. I can't remember his name. The black guy that he looked like he wears the old Don King gray. He's a younger guy, but he's just, you could tell he grayed early. And was putting out some data from readings and things of that nature that was saying that if they actually put out the real history, the true history, right, it would totally disturb the design of America, how this whole country is designed, how it's set up. It would totally destroy and dispel certain folks who believe that they have the right to ownership of this country. So that's one of the reasons why it's not being put out there. And the fact that it would completely transmogrify the given culture that has been displaced, and not only displaced, mistreated. Now, if y'all ever get a chance, I'm gonna end with this. If y'all ever get a chance, there was something going on, I want to say about 6 or 7 years ago, and I can't remember the lady's name, but every single person on this panel remember her. She was a reporter she was a presidential reporter. She had been in a presidential reporter going back as far as Ford, as far as Nixon and Ford, right? Little short lady, dark-haired lady, Caucasian woman, but she was a Jew.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot remember her name, but she was probably one of the most famous presidential reporters, probably to walk through that room. But they had a meeting. Something was going on, like it always is, between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
Mm-hmm.
And she was coming out of a meeting, and the reporters outside, and actually it was a Fox reporter, asked her, well, what do you think the problem is talking about the Palestinian and Israeli situation? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And guess what she said? Looking directly in the camera, guess what she said, Mo?
What's that?
She said, them folk just need to go home.
Mm.
Right? So the reporter then asked her back, hold on, what do you mean they just need to go home? She said, them folk need to go home. They don't belong there. And the reporter asked her again, well, which people need to go home? She said, the Israelis. They need to go back to Poland. Mm-hmm. She said they need to go back to Poland. It is not their land.
Mm-hmm.
They need to go back to Poland. And they asked her, well, how do you know that they're from Poland? She said, because I'm a Polish Jew. Mm-hmm. I know, I was alive. She was one of those people who lived through like the Holocaust and all of that. She just died like maybe in between 5 and 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But we all remember.
Hold on, Kurt.
She always up front. She was always on the front row, almost dead center to the podium. So wherever the president's podium is, she was always sitting dead front, right off to the president's, I want to say his left.
Okay.
Right?
Gotta keep it moving, Curtis. Gotta keep it moving.
I can't remember my name though, but if y'all can find it, listen to what this lady say.
Okay. Hold right there, Curtis. Hold right there. Hold right there. Anybody else got anything they want to say? We got a few more minutes before we get out of here. Anybody got anything they want to say before we get out of here?
The reporter's name is Helen Thomas.
Helen Thomas?
Yes.
Is Helen Thomas, Curtis? Helen Thomas. Anybody else?
Okay.
Everybody else is okay? Cassandra, you was having some issues with your phone line. Seek will hear you again. Want to make sure you finish your thought. Cassandra, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. It was some issues with your phone line. It kept going in and out. It would drop down very low. We could barely hear you. Finish your thought for me, sis.
Yeah, no, all I was saying was, why would anybody not want to know the African side of their heritage? I mean, why? Why every other group of people can trace themselves back and tell you where they came from, where, grandmama, great-grandmama, great-great-great-great. We're the only group of people that are silly enough to not care where my family came from. What the heck? What is that? That doesn't even make sense to me. I know you may only be able to go back a certain distance, but I would be trying to find out. That's a part of who you are. Where you came from is a part of who you are. That's why I think we're so messed up, because we don't know who we are, where we came from, half of us, and don't care. What the heck? Oh, I'm here now. I don't care what happened. I don't care where my great-great-parents. Well, I do. I personally do. So finding out that we are, my people started from Sierra Leone, that was important to me.
Exactly.
It really was.
And that's good. That's good. And it should be. It really should be. Rico, I saw you light up there for a second. What's on your heart, brother?
I get what would make them not want to find out. Shame. Because they drank the Kool-Aid and they believed the narrative that you had people over there with bones coming through their jaws and just over there booga, 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 and they didn't have no civilization or education. They didn't understand the excellence that in the scholarship that existed over there. So they believed the narrative that the colonizer wiped away from us and fed to the younger generations that, hey, we're doing you a favor. So you got a lot of black people like Steve Harvey. I'm glad they brought me over here. You hear those people. And the people that speak like that are ashamed because they love this American way. And they actually believe that we have it better. And they actually believe that Africa is all desert and jungle. They don't understand that you have civilization and culture over there. They don't understand that even in the past, when we were bought from over there, those people had more culture. They just didn't have guns, bullets, and violence. They didn't have that negative technology to go around and do what the colonizers did. And so I think shame, because if you believe the American story, you would always believe that you are in a better place, and you would also believe that you did better. You were better off coming here, even if your ancestors went through what they went through. And people now today's generation of Black Americans, African Americans, or melanated Americans would 9 times out of 10 think that, hey, we got it better than them over there. But you talk to some Africans and they'll tell you, no, y'all got it worse. Y'all completely out the loop. Y'all have drank that Kool-Aid. So I think that's what'll make a person not want to go and find out where they came from, because they may be ashamed of where they came from, and they don't want to remember that, because they believe that we did come from savages.
Charles, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, let me say something. When Enrico does this a lot, you always use the word conquer. What's the word you use? Colonizer. When you call people colonizers, you're actually calling them your conqueror, because you can't colonize a place without conquering it. Simple as that. I don't call people colonizers because all people are colonizers. You have African colonizers that went to other places that did it, which are called conquerors. When you got people say we were once conquerors, you get it? So when you put those words out there and understand what you're trying to do, but you're actually giving them ups. You're putting them above you. Now, at one time, I didn't want to go. I have a business in Africa right now, and I want to go. At one time, I didn't want to go. And let me tell you why. Because as a child, I thought, if we were taken away, and this is before I learned that we were sold, if we were taken away, why didn't they come and get us? I don't want to go there. They don't want us. They didn't come and get us. And then once I learned we were sold, I got even more mad. You understand? Because we were sold into this thing that we're into now. It's not like, and then I started understanding that slavery was a business and it wasn't a personal thing to a lot of people. But to the people we were sold from, they were selling the less that they thought they were less to the ones that they conquered. So when I look at the American, I understand like the things that Steve Harvey or Muhammad Ali said, or things like that, about they're glad they're in America. They're looking at the situation of, we don't know if it was a blessing to be in a land of milk and honey and to be able to be in a world power like we are, because this is a world power. And then to be able to be the number one people as of in making money. We can make money here. We can do a lot of things. And we have the opportunity to go back to Africa and help people out. That's how I got my business started. So we have these opportunities here. And I thank God that we have these opportunities. I don't know how to thank God for the plight that we went through as a people to get here. I don't know how to do that yet. But I do know how to thank God for the situation that I'm in right now, to say I can help people. You understand? Because I know Africans who need my help. You understand? Not all, but I do know some. So I help them. So it could be a blessing. It could be a curse at the same time. But I do know that's one of the things that when I hear Black people say, and just going back to the beginning of what I'm saying, when we keep using the word colonize, you're actually calling them your conqueror.
Okay.
Because at one time we were all colonizers. We don't understand it. We colonized other places, just like Native Americans. They went and colonized other Native Americans. They weren't just doing this before we got here. And that's me studying my Native American history. They went and took over and took women and things like that. They conquered each other. Just like in Africa, in the continent we call Africa, we conquered each other.
Good deal.
It's no different than when a white person come over and conquer, or a Spanish people come over and conquer places in Africa. We were conquerors also. So you win some, you lose some.
Got to get out of here, brothers. Got to get out. Anybody else have anything they want to say before we get out of here? Anybody have anything they want to say?
I got to answer that question. Right. Go ahead. Go ahead. I want to answer the question he asked, though.
Okay. Real quickly, gentlemen. Go ahead, Curtis. Curtis?
I'm going to leave it alone, man. My spirit telling me not to argue with a donkey.
Can I say something?
I know y'all not calling my brother a donkey. Now, y'all don't do that. We ain't going to do that.
It's not an argument.
Yeah.
Hold on. Go ahead, Tucson.
It's not an argument.
Hold on, Charles. Go ahead.
And I can blast a lot of things that Curtis said.
Hold on, Charles. Hold on. Tucson, go ahead.
They don't want us back. Because we've been kind of like Rico said, the pride has gone by now. The African pride of all melanated Americans have gone by now. The truth, I'm talking about that. See, because it's just me, and I don't know it's time to go. But they didn't come get junk. They came get somebody that can help them build a nation.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They didn't come get the one that hang out and destructive. So when you talk about, and I know we out of time, we talk about who they enslaved. They came to get the best of the best. But by now, we're the worst of the worst. That's all I got to say about that.
Good deal. Cassandra, I think I heard you say something.
Oh, no, I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
Rico, you wanted to respond?
Yeah, man. I mean, because that sort of put the blame on Africans. And we talking about the same Africans that were oppressed and killed on in the Congo. I mean, they went to Africa and did that. They did that in the Congo. So to ask why didn't they come get us, it's pretty much the same reason as why couldn't we go back? Well, if that's the case, why didn't they come and get us? Why didn't they keep the European colonizer from oppressing and killing them on their own continent? That was a thing that Marco Polo came up with called guns and ammunition and weapons of mass destruction.
We were sold, man.
Hold on.
That's part of it. That's part of it. But I mean, like you said, why didn't they come get us? Well, why didn't we go back? Why can't some people go back now? Right now, you got to have a passport to go back to your motherland. But do you think they was gonna let it be that easy to come back and get us when they
that was me thinking as a child, man. That was me thinking as a child. I told you I changed my thoughts when I learned later.
Okay.
So that's me as an elementary school student thinking.
Okay.
I'm just giving you the insight of how I thought as when I was in elementary school.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
So hold on, we gotta get it. This right here. This part here could go on for two more hours. So we're gonna get on out of here. Anybody have anything else they want to say before we go? Anybody else? Rico, what's going on? What's going on at 3:00 today, sir?
Oh,
if you missed today's, go ahead, Badger. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Badger.
You know, in this day and age, history is jacked up. History is written by the winners and always will be. What we need to be more focused on are solutions, acceptance, and we all bleed red.
That's good.
I think everyone needs to have their eyes taken out so that way they can't see colors anymore. And I think, a lot of things will get a lot better if we quit using our eyes to look at other human beings.
Well, Badger, how am I drive to the store give me some Browns butter pecan ice cream? Me and Cassandra like Browns butter pecan ice cream, man. We take our eyes out. We can't even get no ice cream no more. Cassandra, what we gonna do about that, Cassandra? We take our eyes out. We can't even go down to
then people need to quit acting like fools and holding on to hate.
I'm not with you. I'm with you today, Ricky.
How we gonna drive down to the store get our Browns butter pecan ice cream?
I'm not with you. I'm done.
Rico, what's going on at 3:00 today?
If you missed today's broadcast and would like to see the rebroadcast in its entirety, you can tune in at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on www.dkmmediagroup.com.
And I know y'all are missing somebody today. Willa, she's actually on her way. She's on her way out of state. She's going. She told me what she was going. I can't remember right now, but she's going to preach today. And so she said she'll be back. She'll be back on with us on Monday. So
that's why she gave us 2 of them yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. The carrier's over. But yeah, she's on her way. She's on her way to spread the word with some people, man. I know they're gonna be absolutely blessed, man. I hope God use her like He always do, man, and just let her bring that word to those people and touch their hearts, man. Touch their heart. We got Toussaint. Toussaint actually gonna pray us out today. Toussaint, you ready? Toussaint?
Yeah. Well, anyway, God our Father, we come and we give you all glory and honor, and we praise you. We bless you for who you are. And as we search out history, it begins with you. So help us to seek you while you may be found and call upon you while you may. Bless us as we go through this day. Keep us in your care. In the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Oh yeah, I ain't never meant to congratulate Don on getting this church, man. I watched this sermon. Yeah, I don't know if you had ever done it, but I ain't never, I kept forgetting to tell him that I seen it that first day. I made sure I watched it.
Exactly, and he's doing a great job, man. Doing a great job.
Yeah, congratulations, man.
Go ahead on there, Toussaint.
Thank you, man. Bless you.
Look, trying to do something around here, boy. I'll be ashamed of yourself trying to do something around here, boy. I see what you're trying to do over there now. I've been watching you, boy. I'm telling you, I've been watching. I've been looking at you. I'm just saying to you now. Don't make me go over there and get
look, hey, but right here,
yes, sir.
You know what I thought about for real? Enrico, you ain't gonna be ready for this, but I thought about getting you to be one of the guest speakers for real.
Rico, he talking to you. He talking to you, Rico.
Oh, me being a guest speaker, well,
at the church.
I do it on cuss. It's gonna be a little hard. It come off a little better when I cuss, but I can do it without cussing. I might have to think of some synonyms.
He said he's gonna put you up on the pulpit and let you bring forth the word. See?
Yeah, man, I'm gonna come up with some synonyms, man, because they come off good when I cuss, but if I don't cuss, I have to think a little harder. Flow like butter with them cuss words.
Exactly. And I'm gonna tell you what, this mother.
And flow like water, smooth like butter with these cuss words.
There'll be no offering. There'll be no offering today.
Exactly. Look, all y'all just take your money on home with you. Don't even worry about it.
And the day was free. The day was free. It was free.
Exactly. It was on me. It was on me. This was on me today. Don't even worry about it. Yo.
Oh man.
If you want to just save that money for next week and put it on for next week. We promise you him won't be back here next week. Him won't be back here.
Oh man.
Look here. We're going to get out of here, man. I definitely appreciate each and every one of you. I want to thank you all for allowing DKM Media Group and Associates and the Morning Glow for being a part of your day. It is now 10:11. You're about to exit the Morning Glow. But before you go, I want you to do me 2 favors, if you will. One, I want you to continue to pray for us, because we're certainly praying for each and every one of you. Number 2, why this is real simple. I want you to go out there, find somebody, and give them a hug, because you never know. It could be the only hug that they get, or it could very well be their last. Love you, and ain't nothing you can do about it. Have a great day and a better tomorrow. And we'll shine some of this light on you from the Morning Glow. Take it out there into this wicked and cruel world that we live in, and let your light so shine. If you get an opportunity, give somebody some love. You just might find some love in return. Won't that be a beautiful thing? Have a great day. And please, please, please be blessed. Take care of each other. Love ya.